Introduction to Mao Jin Dao in the late Jin Dynasty. Chapter 1. Decisions by the Yellow River. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Luoyang, Collegian. Wang Mi's army was defeated like a mountain collapsing, and he rode a tall horse, panicking and heading north. Beigong Chun no longer glanced at the battlefield that was out of control due to Wang Mi's escape. For De Jin, it was time to harvest the garbage. So without any hesitation, Beigong Chun immediately chased after Wang Mi with dozens of personal guards in the direction of his escape. Wang Mi flattered all the way and gradually distanced himself from the Western Yang cavalry led by Beigong Chun. But suddenly, the horse stumbled and Wang Mi was thrown out by the horse, rolling onto the ground, looking quite embarrassed. Even more deadly was when he turned around and heard the sound of hooves chasing after him. Wang Mi couldn't help but feel a bit desperate. He didn't expect to die here. Hurt my uncle. At this moment, a voice with a hint of immaturity and clarity, like the cry of a young bird. More than 10 cavalry dressed in white robes rushed out from one side. Beigong Chun glanced at the cavalry, and compared to the dozen or so cavalry, he was even more wary of the hundreds of infantry with white headscarves following behind them. Although the number of opposing cavalry is not large, the combination of infantry and cavalry can be difficult to handle on one's own. But on second thought, the other party was just an ordinary refugee, so how could they possibly know how to coordinate walking and riding? Of course, the most important thing was that the young man with a long spear in his hand, who was leading the troops, rushed over like this. Where did you get so stunned? Especially as we approached, we saw that the young man was about 13 or 14 years old, wearing a silver bright armor. It looked a bit too big, probably snatched from the Xuchang arsenal during Wang Mi's uprising. Although it is normal for generals to wear armor, they need to be personally guarded and commanded by their subordinates to form a joint force. If it weren't for these, generals wearing bright light armor would actually become prominent targets, let alone stunned young people charging directly towards them. Beigong Chun sneered and took the initiative to pat his horse forward. The horses of both sides crisscrossed, and his long spears were handed out like lightning, stabbing the head of the little moth thief. As for the long halberd swung by the other party, a 13 or 14-year-old child, afraid that his body had not yet grown, actually went to the battlefield. However, Beigong Chun was completely unaware, and the guards around the young man looked at Beigong Chun with a hint of pity. The spears and halberds intersected, and Beigong Chun suddenly felt his hands numb. An indescribable strange force surged out from the opponent's long halberd. Feeling numb from the tiger's mouth, the tiger-headed spear in his hand was directly thrown out by the opponent's spear. Both sides lost their weapons in just one confrontation. Even though Beigong Chun had some carelessness, the gaze at the young man in front of him at this moment also carried some degree of astonishment as he looked at the monster. But at this moment, the young man's long halberd struck him again, and Beigong Chun twisted his body, using the horse as the fulcrum to avoid the slash. This young man's horse fighting experience is not rich, intertwined with each other, but he managed to regain his life. Beigong Chun's fast horse charged forward with a whip, but then turned in the right direction. He picked up the tiger-headed spear that had been shot to the ground on the horse without slowing down, and returned to the cavalry of Xiuyang. His personal guards immediately gathered around him, fearing that something might happen. Beigong Chunshin felt a little calm and said, "Great strength, young man, give me your name." "I am Lu Tai, the queen of Qingzhou Jingwang." Lu Tai looked at Beigong Chun without fear and said, "Are you willing to fight with me again?" Beigong Chun glanced at Wang Mi, who had remounted his horse and was preparing to escape, and sneered, "Wang Mi is quite lucky." Beigong Chun looked at his swollen tiger mouth and the infantry surrounding him, and said in a deep voice, "Let's go." Between words, Beigong Chun led the Western Yang cavalry to withdraw, but they did not continue to entangle. Lu Tai dare not continue to entangle with Beigong Chun. After all, the army has been defeated, and it would be great if he could save Wang Mi. Fortunately, the opponent's desire to fight was not firm enough. Otherwise, if they continued to fight, even if they could kill Beigong Chun, if Wang Yan's main army led them up, they would not be able to escape. Lu Tai was thinking about these things in his heart as he rode his horse forward quickly and said to Wang Mi, "Uncle, you're still fine." Wang Mi breathed a sigh of relief and smiled at Lu Tai, saying, "Tai heir, thanks to you today, I was able to regain my life." Lu Tai looked earnestly and said, "Uncle is a person of great fortune. Even if Tai is not here today, he will definitely be able to escape from heaven. Not to mention that since my father's death, Uncle Wang has treated me like a son, and I regard Uncle as my father. Why say these outrageous things?" If it weren't for Lu Tai's lack of knowledge about the historical figures of the Wei, Jin, Southern and Northern dynasties, he might have taken the opportunity to kneel down and say, "If you don't give up, Tai would be willing to worship you as your adoptive father." Of course, Lu Tai's words to Wang Mi were not unfounded. Since my father's death, I have followed Wang Mi to escape and have had rich experience of defeat along the way. Every time he experiences a defeat, Wang Mi always manages to escape, making Lu Tai wonder if he has any special escape skills. And Lu Tai was pondering in his heart, as another uprising army with the banner of Wang came towards him. This defeated army looks somewhat organized, but it is not completely disorganized. The leader is quite handsome. When he saw Wang Mi on horseback, he immediately rode over and said earnestly, "Brother! Brother!" Zhang saw that Beigong Chun was chasing after him and wanted to stop him. Unexpectedly, he saw that our army not only did not engage with us, but also actively avoided us. "It's all thanks to Tyre." Wang Mi sighed, "It seems that Beigong Chun has suffered a hidden loss. No wonder he walked so fast." Lu Tai proudly straightened his chest and cooperated, saying, "Uncle heir, you're late. I beat Beigong Chunka away. Look at what you can do." Wang Zhang heard Lu Tai's words and turned over to hammer Lu Tai's chest armor. Wang Zhang turned his head to Wang Mi and said sternly, "Brother, this city of Luoyang is strong and the Jin army is elite. I'm afraid we won't be able to take it down for a while. Let's gather the remnants first, cross the Yellow River, and then discuss." Wang Mi nodded calmly. Being defeated from Shandong all the way to Xuchang, and then from Xuchang all the way to Luoyang, is like being defeated like a mountain collapsing. Gathering up the remaining army and summoning the old troops has long been commonplace. Moreover, even the former generals may not have much talent for leading troops, but if their escape skills are not cultivated, they may have already been buried in Qingzhou and cannot even come here. As expected by Lu Tai, the remnants of the army that had been defeated by the court quickly gathered around Wang Mi and Wang Zhang. Like Lu Ling, Wang Sang, Chao Yi, Zhao Gu and others, they ran to the Yellow River with their remaining troops. After Wang Mi re-established his camp on the Yellow River, he personally led a team of people to pacify the retreating defeated army. Everyone gathered together to discuss the next steps. Lu Tai has long been accustomed to this scene, and the army led by Wang Mi can be considered as towering. Almost every person with soldiers under their command can be considered a small hill. So when the war is really commanded, not to mention the prohibition, it is fortunate to be able to implement the order from Wang Mi to the soldiers charging within an hour. To be honest, the Jin army's nickname for this army moth thief is not necessarily a mistake. So, in the face of the Jin army led by Wang Yan, the uprising army also relied on a pool of blood and courage to support it. But as Beigong Chun led 100 cavalry to charge in from behind, the army that was originally deadlocked with Wang Yan collapsed. Now, team leaders of all sizes sit in a circle, and although Lu Tai is only 12 years old, he also has a chair here. This chair was not born with Lu Tai's divine power. Except for Lu Ling, there were almost no invincible warriors in the entire military camp who fought it down. But because Lu Tai was the son of Lu Bogan, the leader of the previous uprising, Lu Bogan's uprising was suppressed by Wang Jun, and Lu Bogan died in battle. Lu Tai and Wang Mi were considered to have escaped from Xingtian. Wang Mi not only took care of Lu Tai, but more importantly, Wang Mi rebelled again, especially after capturing Xuchang. He gave Lu Tai a 1,000-person establishment to control military power, but he had to rely on his own manpower. Then Lu Tai relied on his innate divine power, coupled with the constant belief that he was the queen of Qingzhou Jingwang, and the consciousness of not recruiting troops after only 300 to 500 people, to become a small hill where the rebel army relied on Wang Mi. As for whether Lu Tai is actually the queen of Qingzhou Jingwang, I'm sorry, not to mention Wang Mi, even Lu Tai himself is a bit unsure about the context. After all, Lu Tai is only 12 years old, so he doesn't seem to be at the age of lying. Plus, there's nothing bad about having a descendant of a Han Dynasty royal family here. All of these gave Lu Tai the qualification to sit here and listen, but if he had to interrupt, no one would listen. Brothers, today we were defeated in Jincheng due to my poor command. I cannot compensate you, especially the brothers who died in battle. Wang Mi bowed to the leaders of all sizes. Everyone naturally stopped Wang Mi's salute, saying that it was not because the commander was too incompetent, but because the Jin army was too powerful. After all, the siege of Luoyang this time was partly driven by a desire to give it a try. At most, we would have passed away, but we are moth thieves and our lives are not worth it. After completing a set of procedures, Wang Mi slowly said, now that our brothers are not attacking Luoyang, when the Jin court reacts and dispatches elite soldiers to besiege us, we may not have the opportunity to sit down and discuss today. Now please speak freely and plan a way out for our brothers together. When everyone heard these words, they all spoke up one after another. Wang Shuai, now the Jin army is strong, and the morale of today's soldiers is even stronger. Should we return to Qingzhou? Chao Yi spoke first. The Jin court dispatched Go Shi to Qingshu. This person's military prowess is comparable to that of Han Bai. If we go, we are afraid that sheep will enter the tiger's mouth, Wang Sang worried. When Lu Tai heard Wang Sang's words, he couldn't help roast. Who is this passer-by? Can anyone meet Han Bai? However, upon hearing this person's name, the few present turned pale to some extent, and the air was temporarily filled with a hint of silence. It is obvious that the people present are very wary of Go Shi and clearly do not want to face this person. Lu Ling shook his head and said, we can't even defeat this Jin army, let alone Go Shi. Anyway, I won't go. It is obvious that Lu Ling's words represent the attitude of the majority of the leaders of the uprising, and they all agreed at once. At this moment, Lu Tai pulled Wang Zhang, who was not far from him, and whispered, second uncle. Is this Go Shi very strong? Since the uprising, Go Shi has been invincible. His opponents, including Gong Shifan, Ji Sang, and Sima Teng, have almost always been defeated and died in battle. In ancient times, Han Bai was just like this. Wang Zhang exclaimed, even his younger brother Go Chun has defeated his elder brother several times. Upon hearing these words, Lu Tai couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. With his shallow knowledge from history, it can be certain that Go Shi is definitely not someone comparable to Han Bai. At least I am not very clear about the history of the northern and southern dynasties, but if this surname Go Shi can really compare to Han Bai, at least he would have to be a 64 general. With such a distinctive surname, if he were to be a 64 general, I wouldn't have forgotten it. So, in the future, Go Shi's golden body should be ruined by someone, even losing in consecutive battles, naturally losing the qualification to become a 64-year general. Unlike Han Bai, who really raised all the enemies he encountered, even if he lost like Guan Yu, it doesn't matter. As long as he proves himself to be the only team and needs other people in the world to work together to defeat him, he can also become a 60.4 general. Thinking of this, at least Lu Tai does not feel that the other party is invincible. At this moment, everyone is discussing, and there are people who can say what to pay attention to. Some even say they want to surrender to the Jin Dynasty. In short, they are constantly being raised, but they are also constantly being refuted. Wang Mi asked everyone to speak up until Chao Yi said, how about we go and seek refuge with Lu Yuan? Wang Mi saw someone finally mention Lu Yuan, and before others objected, he decisively said, the soldiers of the Jin Dynasty were indeed powerful. We have now become remnants of the army and are defeated. Even if we continue to fight, we are afraid of winning less and losing more. Joining Lu Yuan is indeed a place to go. Lu Yuan. That Xiongnu person. Lu Ling couldn't help but be surprised when he heard Wang Mi's words. Several people present also changed their faces when they heard Lu Ling's words. After all, there was a Han dynasty, even during the Three Kingdoms period, where the Han people oppressed and fought against other ethnic groups. Not to mention that the Kong family in Shandong is still more than 700 years away from being granted the title of Yan Shingong, and their knees are still hard. Therefore, a group of people have some feelings for the Xiongnu people who have defected to them. Wang Mi shook his head and said, Lu Yuanhai used to be a hostage. We had a deep friendship in the capital, and he admired Wang Hua and respected Confucianism. More importantly, now he is known as the King of Han. We can find the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com to continue the tradition of the Great Han. That's why I joined him. Is he the King of Han? Lu Tai watched as everyone fell silent and decisively jumped out to be a good comedian, giving Wang Mi a step. Wang Mi looked at Lu Tai with admiration and continued to explain to everyone. Lu Yuanhai's ancestors were descendants of Emperor Gao of Han, Lu Bang, who married a daughter of a royal family as a marriage princess to Faden Chanyu. Afterwards, the legitimate descendants of the Xiongnu all took Lu as their surname and had Han bloodline. Nowadays, he regards Han as his national title, opposes Jin and restores Han, and revises old customs, which is exactly what the people of the world aspire to. The crowd heard Wang Mi's words, but for a moment they found it difficult to speak. Life is so helpless. If one were strong enough to destroy the Jin court on their own, they would not fall into such a situation. But there's no other way. Whoever makes themselves weak, it's the Jin court who's about to destroy them. So stay here, either surrender to the Jin court and become a dog, or you will inevitably be hanged by the Jin court. As for the other option, making a sword for Lu Yuan, who has Xiongnu ancestry but bears the name of the Great Han Dynasty, may not necessarily be very enjoyable. So, the atmosphere here naturally has a bit of stagnation. However, Lu Taigua interrupted and said, I will choose whichever uncle chooses. Uncle's attitude is my attitude. Even though Lu Tai's own power is weak, he is the first to express his position. Because except for Wang Mi, no one can let their 12-year-old self lead the army, and even if they are willing, they will still have conflicts with them. Seeing Lu Tai's quick reaction, Wang Zhang and Wang Sang were quite shocked. At this moment, they decisively said, we also support our brother. Wang Mi nodded in satisfaction at the scene and looked at the remaining humanists. What do you think? Chapter 2. Chu Ji Jiu in the camp. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wang Mi's gaze swept over the generals, but none of them immediately stepped forward to express their opinions. After all, whether it is Lu Tai, Wang Zhang, or Wang Sang, they are all legitimate descendants of Wang Mi, and it is natural to support Wang Mi. Other different military leaders, such as Wang Mi recruiting Li Gu and Chao Yi, were fine, but after careful consideration, they agreed. But among the rebel forces, Lu Ling, another major military leader besides Wang Mi, is still pondering carefully. Because Lu Ling himself was a person who feared that the world would not be chaotic. After the Wang Mi uprising, Lu Ling took the initiative to bring people to join him. Coupled with his innate divine power, at least Lu Tai was not a match for Lu Ling before reaching adulthood, which made Lu Ling appear quite prestigious in the uprising army. So, Lu Lingcheng is the second largest force of this peasant army and also the object that Wang Mi must persuade. Lu Ling looked at the gazes that everyone was looking at him, and immediately showed a chrysanthemum-like smile. Brother Wang's eyes are burning with flames. I believe Lu Yuan will not treat us unfairly. Lu Ling's answer was straightforward, but his mind was also full of twists and turns. He had already pondered and realized that he was different from Wang Mi. Wang Mi was from Donglai in Qingzhou, and even the majority of the backbone of this uprising army came from Qingzhou. They were beaten and left Qingzhou. Despite besieging Luoyang, in reality, they were just seeking survival. But for Lu Ling, not only is his surname Lu, but for Lu Yuan, it is also more or less considered the same surname. The most important thing is that Lu Ling's hometown is Pingyang, north of the Yellow River. For Lu Ling, returning to the north would have more room for development. So, Lu Ling really doesn't have that much moral and ideological burden. What's wrong with working for the Xiongnu people? The world is like this. Working for the Xiongnu people on his own is better than working for the Sima family. After everyone had made a decision, Wang Mi immediately dispatched Wang Zhang as an envoy to the other side of the Yellow River to make contact with Lu Yuan's forces. As the crowd dispersed, Lu Tai did not stay much in the main camp, but returned to his own camp. "Young master, have you come back?" Lu Ming, a 21-year-old military officer under Lu Tai's command, crowded up. Lu Ming was also Lu Tai's father Lu Bogan's servant to Lu Tai, perhaps because their family had been tenants of the Lu family for generations. Even if Lu Bogan was defeated, as long as Lu Tai was not dead, Lu Ming still decided to follow him. At the age of 11 or 12, even though Lu Tai has innate divine power and the support of Wang Mi, it is not easy to truly master an army. At least in many daily tasks, Lu Ming is needed to assist. "Is there still enough food in the camp today?" Lu Tai asked. Ming has taken his brothers to the place where the grain was originally buried to retrieve it and continue to maintain 3 meals a day, hoping to last for 1 or 2 months. Lu Ming said with a slightly gloomy expression, but after the defeat, the brothers' morale was very low. "Please pay attention, young master." "I know." Lu Tai nodded and said, "Starting tomorrow, training will be as old as before, diet will be as old as before, and classes will be as old as before." "Only." Lu Ming agreed upon hearing Lu Tai's words. In the entire military camp, Lu Tai's army was almost the only one that needed daily training, 3 meals a day, and the only refugee unit that needed classes. To some extent, it was a bit out of place with the entire uprising army. Lu Taizai's acquisition is a policy of leniency in and leniency out. If he can't stand Lu Tai's rules, he can leave at any time. If Lu Tai doesn't stop him, that's it. Therefore, Lu Tai's military camp is considered to have the highest frequency of soldier mobility. However, Lu Tai has a nominal staffing of 1,000 people, but he only accepts a maximum of 500 people himself, in order to save food as much as possible. Lu Tai knew that the vast majority of refugees came to the campsite only because they could have 3 meals here, and Lu Tai's attitude was relatively conservative, which gradually led to 437 people. Lu Tai's commanding of troops was not something that could be seen in the uprising army, but whoever caused trouble was beaten by Lu Tai. In this chaotic world, fists are the hard truth. If you don't agree, then endure it for yourself. Anyway, apart from Lu Ling, Lu Tai expressed no fear. And Lu Ling is somewhat shameless. As the first general of the entire uprising and the second largest mountain in the uprising, he fought against Lu Tai. If Lu Tai lost, it was only natural. Can he still argue with a 12-year-old child? If Lu Ling loses, that would be a big deal. Lu Ling is not as good as Wang Mi in dealing with people and things. He was able to secure the second position in the uprising army, and one of the important reasons was his own military strength. And Lu Tai himself knew that his actions were somewhat out of place among this uprising army. But Lu Tai understood better that since it was the end of Jin Dynasty and he was still an uprising army, he could only rely on his soldiers to protect his life. As for the unpleasantness and provocation among colleagues, even Lu Tai who smears things doesn't really care. After all, MiHoYo has made a name for itself by relying on content, and the entire gaming industry has not yet cursed it. Isn't it good to play skin-changing games obediently? Why do we have to work so hard to create content? How can we still lie down and make money? Lu Tai's problem is like this. Lu Tai needs to take responsibility for his own life. If the people around him are unhappy, he will be unhappy. If he is happy, he will be fine. Lu Tai understood that the uprising was not about treating guests to meals, but really risking his life. Even if it could give him an extra chip, that would be good. It's like I thought I was born with divine power, but my dad died. I thought I was invincible at the age of 12, but when I met Lu Ling, I was beaten up. So, Lu Tai learned well. Although I still fully believe that I will be invincible in the world when I grow up, I still obediently recruit soldiers for training. And training requires having enough to eat, so it is necessary to ensure 3 meals. Even when Su Chong was robbed, Lu Tai even brought some meat soup. In summary, Lu Tai also knows that the uprising army is a piece of shit, but it is actually an uprising army of 70,000 to 80,000 people. Lu Tai really doesn't believe so many people, is there still no talent? Of course, one does not seek to have talents, as long as there are hard talents who can accept one's commands and understand one's aspirations, it is enough. After all, the talent of the vast majority of normal people, even if they rely on experience to endure, can still reach the level of a centurion. Not to mention that we have fought against the Jin army multiple times here, walking back and forth between life and death. Not to mention the veteran of the 100 wars, but everyone is at least at the level of a veteran of the 10 wars. And these people, twisted together on the battlefield, may not be able to win the battle, but at least they have enough self-protection. By the way, Chu Ji Jiu didn't escape. Lu Tai couldn't help but ask Lu Ming with a hint of concern. Gudatu is watching with his 10 brothers, young master, please rest assured. Lu Ming said respectfully. It's good if I haven't left. I've been busy these days, so I'll go see the sacrificial wine now. Lu Tai sighed and nodded. Lu Tai walked to the camp where Chu Ji Jiu was held, and Gu Xian welcomed him. Gu Xian's head was slightly larger than that of an ordinary person, but his body was slightly thin and weak, making his head appear somewhat disharmonious. Therefore, he was often called Gudatu in the military camp. Gu Xian, is the sacrificial wine safe inside? Lu Tai Lu asked Gu Xian with a hint of inquiry. Very good, you're not dead yet. A slightly majestic voice rang out from the camp, you're not coming in yet. Upon hearing this voice, Gu Xian wanted to laugh, but dared not. Finally, he said, Master, please. Lu Tai couldn't help but take a deep breath and turn to Gu Chandao, do you want to go in together? Gu Xian's gaze turned to the sky. Although he was also considered a confidant of Lu Tai, when faced with Chu Ji Jiu, let it go. He didn't want to carve military rules. Lu Tai was helpless and could only enter the barracks with a hint of wind and water-cold aura. He happened to see Chu Ji Jiu wearing a Confucian robe, holding a ruler, with a calm and confident expression. He immediately accompanied his smiling face and said, Chu Ji Jiu, I have been neglecting you these days. Chu Ji Jiu looked at Lu Tai and said in a deep voice, Master Lu, it's amazing. We've all gone to attack Luoyang and even sent 10 people to stay and watch over me. You're treating me like a prisoner. Lu Tai's smile became even more friendly, and he said, what are you saying? As long as you swear by the Confucian sages during the sacrificial ceremony that you will not leave our camp, I guarantee that such a thing will never happen again. What a scoundrel. Chu Ji Jiu heard Lu Tai's words and couldn't help but show a look of shame and anger on his face. However, he took a few deep breaths and calmed down, saying, when I came over, I saw that your army camp had been established by the river. Are you planning to cross the Yellow River north? It seems that your courage has been shattered by the court this time. It is precisely because our courage is still there that we have to cross the Yellow River to the north. Otherwise, we might have surrendered to the Jin court. Lu Tai looked at Chu Ji Jiu and said, Ji Jiu, don't rely on the Jin court anymore. They didn't continue to pursue us when we set up a camp by the Yellow River, which means it's enough for them to drive us moth thieves away. They're afraid they're still fighting for power and profit in Luoyang City. Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, Chu Ji Jiu couldn't help but feel a pang of heartache in his heart. He couldn't understand why, despite the fact that the establishment of the great Jin Dynasty had only been a little time ago, he already looked like a fallen country. Chu Ji Jiu thought of this and became increasingly angry in his heart. His face turned cold and he said, "Put out your hand." Ah! Lu Tai was taken aback when he heard Chu Ji Jiu's words. He looked at the ruler in Chu Ji Jiu's hand and said, "Chu Ji Jiu, you can't just hit me because I mentioned your pain point. There's no reason for that. Who said I hit you because of the corruption of the court, officials vying for power and profit? What do you think of me as?" Chu Ji Jiu said with a serious expression, "I hit you because you made a mistake of 53 words in the Tsuli section of the Book of Rights you submitted last time." I know. Lu Tai couldn't help but close his eyes and extend his left hand. Pop 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 pop. Chu Ji Jiu picked up the ruler and without hesitation began to beat. Tsk tsk tsk. Go Xian listened to the sound coming from inside, but could feel the pain of the camp owner. However, none of the military camps under the command of the entire camp leader have ever been subjected to the Chu sacrificial wine rule, except that the camp leader has been beaten the most. Speaking of which, Go Xian doesn't understand why the camp leader brought such an old-fashioned person to make sacrificial wine. I have become a moth thief, yet I am forced to read and abide by certain rules and regulations. If it weren't for the fact that I couldn't defeat the camp owner, and for the sake of having 3 meals a day, I would quite want to leave. But this idea is just a thought, although it is not as enjoyable as other rebel forces here, drinking and eating meat in large bowls, and if you are not satisfied, you will plunder the people recklessly, and if you are more interested, you can directly slaughter the people. But staying in Lu's camp makes me feel more or less like a human, not a beast. Go Xian couldn't help but take a long breath and listen to the mournful cries of camp leader Lu continuing inside the tent. After playing with a 53 ruler, Lu Tai's hand felt swollen. He said pitifully, "Chu Ji Jiu, you really come. Don't blame me. You know how to carve words, but if you make a mistake due to carelessness, you must teach me a lesson." Chu Ji said coldly, "I'm afraid you'll make such mistakes again in the future." Upon hearing this, Lu Tai opened his mouth and wanted to refute it, but in the end, he closed his mouth. The reason why Lu Tai made a lot of mistakes in his own handwriting is that it was easy for him to become a simplified character while learning ancient Chinese characters. Although there is paper in this era, you can't expect the rebels to have it, can you? So the most commonly used ones are bamboo or wood chips, and then I can carve characters on them with a small knife to learn how to write. Because it was carved with lettering, not written down, it would be very troublesome to modify it. Then Lu Tai finished writing an entire article and went to the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com, where he found either continuous misspellings or extensive alterations. This made Lu Tai's daily learning and typing routine almost routine. Lu Tai took his left hand and blew. This was his own sibling, and maybe he would have to work part-time as a clothes linger in the future. He had played this many times a day, and his gaze turned to Chu Ji Jiu, who looked at Lu Tai fearlessly. Then Lu Tai hesitated and said, "Then the sacrificial wine, as usual for tomorrow's class, I'll say goodbye first." Unable to withstand, Lu Tai pondered in his mind why he had chosen such a teacher because he was blind in the beginning. Your sister, does he understand what a fist is? Even if he were to fight himself, he would still be so ruthless. But Lu Tai looked at his identity as a moth thief again, and decided not to be picky. It would be great if he could have a teacher. It would be better to wait until Lu Yuan's territory to see if he could tie in another scholar. Chu Ji Jiu watched as Lu Tai met him, but in the end, he fled in despair. He couldn't help but shake his head, but a smile unconsciously appeared on the corner of his mouth. But soon, he looked at the rudimentary roof built by the camp, with a hint of sadness in his expression. How could a prominent Jin Dynasty Marquis of Guanyi end up serving as a sacrificial wine for a moth thief? Hey, I knew I had avoided the main road long ago, but who knew that just a few moth thieves, the youngest Lu Tai, was born with divine power. I also have some martial arts skills, but when faced with an unreasonable opponent like innate divine power, I was knocked unconscious by Lu Tai and put on a sack. When I came out of the sack, I was already in the uprising army. I cannot let Wang Mi know my identity, otherwise my Chu family may be implicated. Chapter 3. Crossing the River. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Tai escaped from the campsite of Chu Ji Jiu and turned to see Gu Xian, who was holding back his smile. Lu Tai couldn't help but put his left hand behind him and slowly walked forward with his head raised and chest raised. He walked up to Gu Xian and said, "Gu Xian, keep an eye on the sacrificial wine. If the sacrificial wine has any intention of escaping the camp, just break his legs. As long as he doesn't run, we should treat him with teacher etiquette." Delying. Gu Xian agreed to Lu Tai's words with one breath. After meeting with Chu Ji Jiu, Lu Tai also breathed a sigh of relief. Chu Ji Jiu had enough to escape without taking advantage of his defeat. Otherwise, it would be troublesome to catch another teacher at this time. After all, the uprising army just besieged Luoyang. How could there be a scholar walking confidently by the side of the uprising army? As for this Chu sacrificial wine, it was encountered by himself while waiting for others to pass through Heinanyang Zhai, and most importantly, there were several bamboo slips in his package. These bamboo slips are nothing to ordinary rebels, but Lu Tai understands that in this era, a single book is enough to make a fortune. Regardless of whether the person comes from a humble family or a noble family, as long as they hold a book in their hand, they are the intellectuals of this era. Since he has encountered it, Lu Tai naturally won't miss it. And Lu Tai never thought about asking Chu Ji Jiu to give him advice, let alone saying that he only needed to follow Wang Mi now, and there was no need to do anything extra. More importantly, the age of 12 gives oneself an infinitely beautiful future. But similarly, the age of 12 also makes the vast majority of people not easily convinced of themselves. If you say you want to compete for the world, you will either be seen as crazy or as a joke. So there was no need for me to compete for power and profit. I honestly hugged Wang Mi's thigh and asked him to shield me from the wind and rain. As for what will happen in the future, it's something that you don't think about until you're 16, 18, or even 20 years old. Moreover, I dare not offer any advice from Chu Ji Jiu, because if the positions of both parties are not unified, then I dare not use the ideas offered by Chu Ji Jiu. After all, Chu Ji Jiu appears to come from a noble family and is not on the same path as himself. As for accepting Chu's sacrificial wine, this matter was not something that one could kowtow to, as a 12-year-old child, with just one tremor of their tiger body. But if he wants to join Wang Mi, he is also very willing to become the other party's stepping stone, and even if he really gets important in the future, even though he is threatening him now, if he really understands, then he will definitely rely on each other. Lu Tai is well aware that people of different classes cannot be trusted as their own, but it is still possible to cooperate as allies. Lu Tai walked to the soldiers' camp, and Lu Ming quickly came to Lu Tai's side. "Today I will personally check the sleeping conditions," Lu Tai said solemnly, and began to check the sleeping conditions of the soldiers. Ancient military camps were naturally quite rudimentary, making it difficult to command and dispatch. The most difficult task was to ensure proper clothing, food, housing, and transportation. At first, when following his father's uprising, even having meals regularly was a problem, but later on, Wang Mi came over and with his assistance, how to set up the camp, how to eat, how to bury filth, and how to communicate with local aristocratic families. It can be said that compared to my father relying on a set of superstitious theories and the oppression of the people in the Jin court, he couldn't survive, so he followed the rebellion. But what really makes this rabble look a bit like a regular army is the management system brought by Wang Mi. At first, Wang Mi was obviously unfamiliar, but after being defeated several times by the Jin court with his army, Wang Mi became more and more proficient in these simple military knowledge, and his soldiers became more and more experienced in escaping. Although defeated by the Jin court this time, in reality, only the newly recruited soldiers had some degree of low morale. However, those veterans who walked back and forth on the battlefield were all indifferent and boasting one by one. As the news of Lu Tai's bedtime investigation spread, they looked at their blankets one by one and immediately folded them into square shapes about the size of wash basins with both hands at an incredible speed. When Lu Tai came over, some even took out bamboo slices and began to read the words carefully. Lu Tai came over to take a look and was very satisfied with the atmosphere in front of him. He even said, "It's a fortunate thing that all of you brothers can come back today. Today's meal is extra, and we also need to continue training from tomorrow onwards." Delying. Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, everyone immediately responded. At this moment, Lu Tai saw a young soldier about 3 or 4 years older than him with a hint of hesitation on his face, and even looked at him with a hint of doubt in his eyes. "Do you have any doubts?" Lu Tai looked at the young man in front of him and couldn't help but speak. "Report to the camp owner," the young man said in confusion. "I see that people from other camps don't need daily training, don't need to fold blankets, let alone learn calligraphy with Chu Ji Jiu. Why are we doing this? Isn't it enough for us to follow the sacrificial offerings and kill the enemy? What's your name?" Lu Tai looked at the young man in front of him and said. The young man couldn't help but feel timid when he heard Lu Tai's words and cautiously said, "Zhang Wu, ranks 5th at home." However, at this point, Zhang Wu's expression couldn't help but darken, because his family was left with only him. Lu Tai nodded and said, "Zhang Wu, study calligraphy well, and in the future, if you find your own aspirations, give yourself a new name." Zhang Wu couldn't help but greet Lu Tai with a smile on his face. And Lu Tai continued, "You ask me why I want you to learn Chinese characters, because I think although we are moth thieves, if we overthrow the Jin court, we may also be able to become that prince. We won't be able to recognize Chinese characters when the time comes." Marquis. Zhang Wu's big mouth was a bit stunned, he never thought he could become a marquis. Lu Tai smiled and said, "Wang, Ho, and General, it's better to have seed. We have nothing anyway, why don't we take a fight?" Hearing Lu Tai's words, which were a little calm but very powerful, even the old fogies were unconsciously infected, let alone Zhang Wu, a young man. Lu Tai looked at Zhang Wu as if he was shocked by this statement, but didn't say much. Instead, he smiled and left. For Lu Tai, making them literate is actually to help these people not be so numb, so that they can train themselves to become elite smoothly. How should we say it? When a person really has no knowledge, and it is difficult to distinguish between front, back, left, right, etc., these soldiers are difficult to become elite soldiers unless they can train their own commands, and even their instinct for commands surpasses their resistance to death. The vast majority of them will almost collapse when facing a layer of battle damage. And those soldiers who can resist death and fight for their soldiers are more likely to suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. With only Lu Tai's modern sense of morality, it is impossible to achieve such behavior that one needs to be shot no matter how one looks at it. After all, even after crossing, the vast majority of people will experience a decline in their moral character, but there is still a bottom line to any further decline. In contrast, another way of training for the poor is to instill in them lofty ideals, create excellent work styles, be able to fight hard, and be truly elite with minor injuries. Since there is an opportunity to start from scratch, then the positioning of one's opponent as a corporal naturally aligns with the best military in one's mind. Nowadays, I cannot provide high-level political guidance like Marxism-Leninism, and this political guidance theory may not be suitable for China in this era. However, the first step I can take is to provide them with literacy. Yes, Lu Tai's goal is very simple. Starting from literacy, even if he can only learn one character a day, after 2 or 3 years of learning, he can still learn characters well. At least there are no problems with daily reading and writing. And organizational power, as the number of literate soldiers increases, naturally improves. Lu Tai is very clear that if he wants to personally shape the elite he wants, it is really urgent. During this process, some people will definitely leave because they can't bear it. Similarly, they may be defeated before their elite soldiers are trained in any war. But even so, I must make them literate, and it's not enough to just make them literate. I also need to find opportunities to instill my thoughts in them, so that they can become my future right-hand man. These ideas are now afraid to shout out loud, but they need to find a suitable opportunity to promote them. Even in the future, if I help Wang Mi become an emperor or become a general myself, maybe these thoughts will be swallowed in my stomach. But if one day they become independent, they not only need to find ways to arm the soldiers with weapons, but also need to propose a unified guiding ideology that benefits the people, so as to arm the thoughts of the soldiers. Of course, if these things were proposed now, it would definitely be seeking a dead end, but planning for the future is always something that Lu Tai should do. If I could build an elite army with half the strength of a great army in my lifetime, I would have been able to become the top general at that time and complete the task of unifying the world. With such thoughts in mind, Lu Tai tried his best to localize the various skills of the seemingly small but great army in his memory. After inspecting the military camp and comforting some frightened, defeated soldiers, training began the next day. Lu Tai didn't have much nonsense either. Before dawn in the morning, he started waking up the sleeping soldiers and gathering at the fastest speed. Then, Lu Tai took the lead and started the daily jogging. Other camps do not have training, but Lu Tai's camp has training. Even if there are 3 meals a day, there are some criticisms among the soldiers, so many things require Lu Tai to lead by example, leaving the soldiers speechless. As the leader, Lu Tai was responsible for controlling the rhythm and speed. After running for about 10 kilometers, he came back to have breakfast. After finishing breakfast and resting for half an hour, I started training the cue, like walking in front, back, left and right, walking steadily. However, it is not shouting commands, but using various instruments such as golden horns and combinations of different flags. Almost every military formation has a famous military musician who does not directly go to the battlefield. They are responsible for observing the commander's flag orders and then using their own instruments to convey the commander's orders on the battlefield. This is already the fastest way of transmitting information, but to successfully apply this set of information on the battlefield, soldiers need to have skilled training, excellent organizational skills, as well as the commander's accurate grasp of the situation. When this system of combining flags and instruments can be skillfully applied, Lu Tai will be able to further utilize military formations. Even the simplest conical formation, if it can be successfully deployed on the battlefield, Lu Tai can be called a commander of a large army. As for now, it takes about an hour to familiarize oneself with the flags and signals, and the next hour begins to train for spikes. After all, it was an uprising army, and the most common weapon in the hands of the soldiers under their command was the long spear. Even the iron spearhead was obtained from the Xuchang military reserve, and the wooden shaft was sharpened by the uprising army themselves. This is already very good. Lu Tai remembers when the uprising started, it was really about chopping wood as a weapon and lifting poles as flags. In the afternoon, let the soldiers take a short break after lunch, and then let Chu Ji Jiu come to teach the soldiers a lesson, each holding a bone knife in one hand and a wooden piece in the other. It would be great if they could learn 1 or 2 words a day. Watching Lu Tai's camp resume training so quickly, Wang Mi was very satisfied with Lu Tai's performance. For Wang Mi, since his uprising, he has suffered numerous defeats and battles. The most important thing he lacks is the determination to make a comeback. Looking at Lu Tai, this has already restored the morale of the troops. For Wang Mi, this is the greatest support for himself. Thinking of this, Wang Mi couldn't help but look across the Yellow River. He had already dispatched his younger brother Wang Zhang to the other side of the Yellow River to search for the Xiongnu and Han dynasty to discuss taking him across the river. At the same time, Wang Mi himself also instructed Wang Sang and Chao Yi to start collecting boats from upstream and downstream of the river to prepare for crossing. In contrast, what Wang Mi is most worried about is that if time is delayed for too long, if Luoyang continues to attack his camp, he may not be able to hold on. After all, Wang Mi knew that he had two qualities: joining Lu Yuan alone and joining Lu Yuan with his troops. However, the reaction speed of the Xiongnu Han court was far beyond everyone's expectations. Wang Zhang had just arrived on the opposite bank of the Yellow River as an envoy. Lu Tsong, who was stationed in the Taihang Mountains, saw Wang Zhang and immediately organized a group of ships to come and pick up the rebel army. Lu Tsong personally crossed the river and greeted Wang Zhang as a nephew, coming to pick up and escort the rebels across the river. At the same time, someone was sent to deliver Wang Zhang to Lu Yuan and report to him the news that Wang Mi was preparing to come and take action. Wang Mi and others successfully withdrew from the Yellow River, partly because Lu Tsong responded quickly, but at the same time, the Jin court seemed to completely allow Wang Mi to cross the river smoothly. Perhaps in the eyes of the Jin court, Lu Yuan's uprising for several years only occupied a corner of Hedong. Although Wang Mi had eroded Qingzhou, he was easily defeated by Wang Yan. What if such figures join forces? As long as the court is willing, it is not enough to overthrow them. Continuing to compete for power and profit is more important, especially for Wang Yan, who has won the battle this time and is already operating to transfer his civilian position to a military position and prepare to become a captain. Chapter 4. Gentleman's Agreement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With Lu Tsong's guidance, the rebel army crossed the Yellow River very smoothly and then entered the Taihang Mountains from Jingwanxing. Lu Tsong stood on the mountain peak, overlooking Wang Mi's uprising army entering the Taihang Mountains. Hu Yanhao beside him said to Lu Kang, "Young master, Wang Mi's uprising army is just a group of ragtag people. If we fight with the elite of the Han dynasty, we are afraid that one face-to-face will make this uprising army timid and then flee. Why should you treat us so politely, young master?" Hu Yanhao is the wife of Lu Kang. Although he is older than Lu Tsong, he is quite respectful to him. It is precisely because of carrying such an army that Wang Mi was able to stir up trouble in the Central Plains, causing unrest in the Jin court and demonstrating his abilities even more. Lu Tsong shook his head and said, "Besides, nowadays there are only a few people who raise the Han flag to bid, and now there are finally people of fame who will bid. How can we neglect and add some setbacks to Grandpa's great cause? Young master, great righteousness." Hu Yanhao saluted Lu Tsong and sighed upon hearing his words. Ha! Lu Tsong, who was watching Wang Mi's army pass through Guanxing, suddenly let out a faint doubt. Hu Yanhao followed Lu Tsong's doubts and looked down. To be honest, he had seen Wang Mi's scattered mountain climbing, and his army formation became crooked and even had soldiers who needed to be whipped by the commander and centurion with a whip to continue climbing. So compared to the regular army, Wang Mi's uprising army was really poorly organized and disciplined. But now, suddenly a neat and rhythmic army appeared, with the two of them running side by side, about 3 guards behind each other, forming a straight line and advancing in an orderly manner in Jingwanxing. Of course, it is not realistic to say how neat and unified this queue is, but with other relatively scattered uprisings as a comparison, such a neat and unified uprising army becomes particularly prominent. This is like a firefly in the darkness, at least it immediately caught Lu Tsong's eye. Lu Tsong sighed and said, "Wang Mi is indeed not to be underestimated. There are even soldiers training inside. Can you help me pay attention to him?" "No." Hu Yanhao responded to Lu Cong's command. And in the following days, the rebel army basically spent their time on the road, marching about 30 kilometers a day, and with the assistance of Lu Yuan's troops in terms of food, at least there was no problem traveling to meet Lu Yuan. Because he had to rush on his way, he didn't have much training, so he basically arrived at the place and set up camp. After dinner, Lu Tai took the Chu sacrificial wine and began teaching the soldiers how to read before dark. Because the sun sets in about half an hour, there are basically no opportunities for teaching. At the end of the day, the supplies in my hands are still too scarce. The rare campfires in the military are mainly used for night security and patrols, and it is impossible to use them for teaching Lu Tai's camp soldiers. Therefore, if you want to learn knowledge, you can only seize the time. However, even so, Lu Tai could feel that the distance from the Zhuogua city where Lu Yuan was located was getting closer and closer. Because with this direction, villages gradually emerged. Although these villages were fully armed when the army approached, closing the village gates and making a posture of confrontation at any time, the presence of villages here indicates that there is order. And Wang Mi's mood towards meeting his former friend Lu Yuan was somewhat complicated, both joyful and worried. However, he did not show any signs of anxiety in front of the rebels, but Lu Tai, Wang Zhang, and others could still see that Wang Mi was somewhat anxious and uneasy. After all, Wang Mi's position after surrendering to the Xiongnu and Han Kingdom has not yet been determined. However, these things have nothing to do with Lu Tai. Perhaps more accurately, Lu Tai could not have affected these things. At this time, the only thing Lu Tai could do was to learn as much knowledge as possible from this era and train his troops well. However, just as Lu Tai settled down to enrich himself, Professor Lu Tai's Chu Ji wine expression carried a hint of solemnity. Finally, as the distance from Zhuoguqing approached, Chu Ji Jiu, after teaching a course, said to Lu Tai. The camp leader and Wang Shui share the same father and son relationship. Aren't they afraid that Lu Yuan, with the Xiongnu bloodline and the heart of a tiger and a leopard, will set up a hongmen banquet? Upon hearing Chu Ji Jiu's words, Lu Tai looked up at him and said, Chu Ji Jiu, you have ulterior motives. People's hearts are separated by their bellies, and how can the camp leader know whether Lu Yuan will secretly attack and plot against Wang Shui? Chu Ji Jiu said solemnly, anyway, the camp leader and Wang Shui are as close as father and son, reminding us that there can always be no mistake. Lu Tai pondered for a moment and looked directly at Chu Ji Jiu, saying, human hearts cannot be tried, especially if they have predetermined thoughts. No matter what Lu Yuan does, it will only deepen suspicion in Wang Shu's eyes. Everything is for Wang Shui's safety, isn't it? Chu Ji Jiu looked at Lu Tai and couldn't help but answer with some annoyance in his heart. But the person being reminded may not be well-intentioned, right? Lu Tai looked at Chu Ji Jiu calmly. Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, Chu Ji Jiu suddenly choked on something and his expression was slightly melancholic, saying, the camp leader doesn't seem like a 12-year-old childish person, he is truly a wise person. I don't know why he made such a judgment. Lu Tai shook his head and said, not to mention that Lu Yuanhai and Uncle Wang are close friends. Even if we take a step back, Lu Yuanhai named his country Han with the aim of attracting people who were dissatisfied with the Jin Dynasty and harbored feelings for the Han family. Now that Uncle Wang has gone to seek refuge, even if it's just a benchmark, I believe Lu Yuan will definitely not mistreat Uncle Wang. The Jin court and the Han dynasty, at least being a Han person is more attractive, isn't it? Is it that the great Jin was so poor that the camp owner would rather defect to the Xiongnu than choose the great Jin? Chu Ji Jiu couldn't help but sigh. Lu Tai did not expect that Chu Ji Jiu would say such words. To be honest, if we casually cross individuals from the bottom of history, we may hesitate about surrendering to the great Jin or the current Xiongnu and Han kingdom. Even if strictly speaking, the Jin still has the blessing of the Han ethnic group, as long as those who have defected to it think comprehensively, they will basically not choose the Jin. The reason is very simple, that is the 9th grade regular system. It's easy to say if you come from a big family, but if you don't have any big family to rely on, no matter how much you make contributions, your status will be determined when others know your background. Compared to this, the Xiongnu and Han states had at least a habit of having strong ethnic minorities as kings, as well as a system of Han people's imperial examinations, which had at least an upward trend. In addition, as the northern region moves towards the integration of Han culture, it is inevitable that Han talents will continue to be highly valued. To some extent, if you want to have enough stage, you can only choose the Xiongnu Han kingdom. Lu Tai thought of this and said to Chu Ji Jiu, "Chu Ji Jiu, you must have come from a noble family, and the great Jin Dynasty has always been privileged towards aristocratic families. Therefore, it is natural for Chu Ji Jiu to hold the Jin court in your heart, and I naturally aspire to the glory of the Wei and Jin dynasties. Since that's the case, why don't you advise Wang Shuai, the camp leader? If he surrenders with courtesy and still maintains the position of marquis, wouldn't it be beautiful?" Chu Ji Jiu further advised Lu Tai. "Because the glory of the Jin court belongs to aristocratic families, but the pain of the Jin court belongs to the common people." Lu Tai said with emotion, "Not to mention that I am a descendant of King Jing of the great Han dynasty, and even more so, I am a fallen citizen of the Jin court. I am someone who cannot be trusted." Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, Chu Ji Jiu's face twitched uncontrollably, but he also sighed helplessly. However, as if thinking of something, Chu Ji Jiu spoke. "Don't underestimate yourself, the camp leader. Lu Kun and Lu Yuesher are from the Lu family of Yuzhou, who were also highly valued by our great Jin after King Jing of Zhongshan. This shows that great Jin has absolutely no intention of disdaining the Lu family. I don't have a brother-in-law of the Sima family, and he was thrown to Bingzhou. The court doesn't care about him, isn't this exile?" Lu Tai shook his head and reached out his hand to stop the Chu sacrificial wine, trying to say something more. Lu Taidao said, "Chu Ji Jiu, I don't want to continue arguing with you on this point, it will only hurt our harmony. I admire your loyalty to the Jin court, but let me clarify first that my position is by no means the same as that of the Jin court. As long as you still stand on the side of the Jin court, I will not listen to your plans." Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, Chu Ji Jiu took a deep breath and spoke, "Is that the position of the camp leader aligned with Lu Yuan?" "I don't know." Lu Tai shook his head and said, "It mainly depends on what level Lu Yuan can achieve. Observing one's words and observing one's actions is still the principle taught by you in offering sacrifices. If he is truly the current hero and can understand how difficult it is for us ordinary people, then why not let Uncle Wang sacrifice his life for him? Do you not hear the difference between Hui?" Chu Ji Jiu couldn't help but solemnly say when he heard Lu Tai's words. "I know." Lu Tai nodded and said, "For a noble family like you, what you see is the difference between China and the barbarians. How can we Han people do things for the Xiongnu people? But for the lower-class Han people like us who couldn't see any room for improvement in the Jin court because of the 9-rank Xingji system, it was precisely because of the difference between the Chinese and the barbarians that the Xiongnu and Han countries had to rely on our Han people to assist them in governing the world and have a better chance of becoming famous. Didn't they?" Lu Tai looked calmly at Chu Ji Jiu and had to say that he had become much shameless since entering this era. But Lu Tai was very calm and did not regret making such a decision. Because the main contradiction of this era has not yet escalated to the contradiction between the 5 barbarians and the Han ethnic group, and even the contradiction between the people of the Jin dynasty and aristocratic families cannot be considered. So far, although Lu Yuan has referred to the country as Han, it still belongs to the continuation of the conflict caused by the 8 Kings Rebellion. Because Lu Yuan, Wang Mi, and Lu Ling, strictly speaking, were all a convergence of forces under Sima Ying, the runner-up of the 8 Kings Rebellion. In fact, not only Wang Mi and Lu Ling, but even Shi Lu decisively joined Lu Yuan. Because the victor of the 8 Kings Rebellion, Sima Yu, relied on Lu Kun, Wang Jun, and Go Shi and others to become the ultimate victor, controlling the court, it can be said that the army was strong and the horses were strong. If it weren't for internal power struggles, Lu Yuan's Xiongnu Han kingdom would have been almost annihilated with a wave of his hand. Even now, the existence of Lu Kun alone has restrained the Xiongnu and Han kingdom, making Lu Yuan's life quite difficult. So, although Wang Mi surrendered to the Xiongnu Han state with the uprising army, strictly speaking, the Xiongnu Han state is the definition of the country established by Lu Yuan by later generations. Lu Yuan himself posthumously honored Lu Chan as the emperor of filial piety and Huai, and built the shrines of the 3 ancestors and 5 sects below Han Gaozu for worship. He inherited the orthodoxy of the Great Han and claimed that he was also from the Great Han. The orthodoxy of the Han dynasty was established in the Xiongnu. To be honest, if Emperor Wu of Han knew about this, would he have crawled out of the Maoling mausoleum? However, regardless of the situation, surrendering to the Xiongnu and Han kingdom may have some emotional resonance, but in reality, the term traitor is not suitable for people like Wang Mi and Lu Tai. Especially for the lower class of the common people, when they experienced the life of rushing towards the end of the Jin Dynasty as soon as it was founded, especially after the devastation of the 8 Kings Rebellion. In fact, their acceptance of the sudden emergence of the Han Dynasty was still very high. Chu Ji Jiu heard Lu Tai's words and opened his mouth to say something, but he couldn't say it. Because what Lu Tai said was true, compared to the power struggles of aristocratic families and clans within the Jin court, although Lu Yuan was a Xiongnu, he had more opportunities for the lower class people in this place. Especially now that Wang Mi is so decisive in surrendering to Lu Yuan is afraid that he will give Wang Mi a heavy reward if he goes to the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Compared to the conclusion drawn by Lu Tai solely based on his perspective, Chu Ji Jiu, a member of a prestigious family, was able to make accurate judgments with great decisiveness when reminded by Lu Tai. That is to say, Wang Mi will inevitably become a favorable trump card for Lu Yuan to balance the Xiongnu headquarters in the future. Wang Mi's arrival brought not only an improvement in military strength to Lu Yuan, but more importantly, his originally self-proclaimed Han state truly stimulated his attraction to Han talents. At the thought of this, Chu Ji Jiu sat helplessly on the chair, appearing very lonely. The future of Dajin is becoming increasingly bumpy, but the officials at the center of Dajin are still vying for power and profit, unaware of the danger beneath their feet. Ah! Lu Tai sighed helplessly as he looked at Chu Ji Jiu's disappointed expression, and said, "Chu Ji Jiu, I know my behavior has caused you to lose your freedom and made you very uncomfortable. How about this? When I arrive at the left country city and find a new master, how about letting you leave? Where did the camp leader leave it?" Chu Ji Jiu couldn't help but ask in a deep voice when he heard Lu Tai's words. "Your heart is not here. If I can send someone to watch you for a while, can I still watch you for a lifetime?" Lu Tai shook his head and said, "Since that's the case, why don't we make a gentleman's agreement? When the time comes and you want to leave, then leave. Of course, if you want to work for Uncle Wang, then I'll recommend you." Uncle Wang. Chu Ji Jiu smiled when he heard Lu Tai's words. "Camp master, are your Uncle Wang ready to join Lu Yuan? Anyway, I only listen to Uncle Wang. As for who Uncle Wang is loyal to, it's none of my business." Lu Tai smiled cunningly at Chu Ji Jiu. Chapter 5. Like a Fish in Water. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Coming out of the camp of Chu Ji Jiu, Lu Tai couldn't help but press his temple, which was somewhat comforting. To be honest, Lu Tai somewhat admired Chu Ji Jiu's loyalty to the Jin court, but felt regretful. For Lu Tai, who came down from history, the Jin Dynasty created by the Sima family really had little value in existence. Not to mention the Great Unification Dynasty, even the Great Counselor, who cannot even achieve unification, can at least come up with something to argue about. But in the Jin Dynasty, if anyone claims to be a Jin fan online, they may not be laughed at for a lifetime. However, for the lower class in history, especially for the aristocratic families and clans of this era, the Jin court's implementation of the 9-rank Mitteljing system was still quite popular and beloved by them. As a result, some aristocratic families and clans would instead support the Jin court, even if it was chaotic and prosperous, and even if they were to cross the south in clothing, they still chose to be loyal to the Jin dynasty rather than replace it, or they wanted to create a new China with their own hands. Because the Jin dynasty's sense of belonging to aristocratic families was really difficult to understand for ordinary college students like myself, who came from the lower reaches of history but had a middle-class demeanor. This is also the reason why Chu Ji Jiu tirelessly tried to persuade himself. Although admirable, I also feel regretful that Chu Ji Jiu is not on the same side as me. Unfortunately, I am not clear about the history of the northern and southern dynasties. Why didn't Luo Guanzhong continue to write about the story of the unification of the Jin dynasty to the 5 barbarians and then to the unification of the Sui and Tang dynasties when he was writing about the romance of the 3 kingdoms? Lu Tai muttered silently in his heart, pondering, if there were a classic work similar to the romance of the 3 kingdoms as a reference, even if it were a novel, it would be better than blind people touching elephants now, with almost no reference for the future. Lu Tai is helpless, but the road still needs to be taken. The only thing I can be certain of now, at least from my perspective, is that the conflict between ethnic minorities and the Han ethnic group has not escalated to the main contradiction. Not to mention, even if Lu Yuan had the bloodline of the Xiongnu, as long as he still held high the banner of Han, now China is willing to accept them. There is a reason why Lu Yuan himself received the baptism of Han culture from a young age, which makes him more like a Han person. But similarly, it may not necessarily be that the Jin dynasty of the Sima family was too bad, leaving the lower class of the Chinese people with no sense of belonging. Unfortunately, I can be considered as following Wang Mi's uprising army, coming from the bottom of society. It's okay to say that Wang Mi has a sense of belonging to the Jin court himself, but the reality is that even if he has a sense of belonging, Wang Mi will not be the leader of this uprising. Lu Tai couldn't help but feel a bit regretful. It has to be said that Lu Yuan's establishment of the country's name as Han is really impressive in politics. Lu Tai pressed the Chu sacrificial wine button, and the following days also went smoothly. However, as he approached the left country city, Lu Tai could also see that Wang Mi still had some hesitation in surrendering to Lu Yuan. In fact, not only him, but also the other small and large hills in the uprising army, facing the approaching Zhuogua city, all had an inexplicable hesitation in their hearts toward surrendering to Lu Yuan. However, just as the uprising army hesitated to some extent due to the approach of Zhuoguocheng, Lu Yuan took the initiative to send Fu Sun, a part-time imperial censor in the first attendant, to the suburbs to welcome the uprising army. Wang Mi dared not be careless and called on Lu Ling, Wang Zhang, Wang Sang, Chao Yi and others. Lu Tai shamelessly approached and followed behind Wang Zhang. Wang Zhang only smiled at Lu Tai and did not drive him away. Fu Sun held Lu Yuan's letter in his hand and handed it to Wang Mi, before respectfully bowing and saying, "The King of Han ordered me to welcome the Duke here, and also ordered me to hand over my handwriting. Please let me act as an envoy and order everyone to go to the left city. The King of Han is 10 miles away from the left city, waiting for the Duke." "Thank you, Imperial Censor." Wang Mi opened the letter that Lu Yuan had given him, only to see it read, "As a general with extraordinary achievements and exceptional virtues, I welcome you here. I am eagerly awaiting the arrival of the general. I personally visit the general's mansion, often brushing my seat and washing my rank, and treating him with respect. Thank you, King Han." Wang Mi raised the letter with both hands to express his gratitude to Lu Yuan. Then, under the guidance of Fu Sun, Lu Tai arrived at Lu Yuan's place. At this time, Lu Tai also saw an energetic old man with white hair and beard. Upon seeing this, Wang Mi dismounted and bowed to the old man. And Lu Tai, as a subordinate, naturally follows the actions of the boss. However, the old man quickly stepped forward and pulled Wang Medeo with a smile on his face. "You and I are close friends, so why salute like this? It's absolutely necessary. Now that you are the King of Han in the great Han dynasty, how could I be disrespectful?" I insist on staying in the left country city, but I hope to one day call you your majesty. Wang Mi looked at Lu Yuan sincerely. Upon hearing Wang Mi's words, the commanders of the uprising army looked at his posture, which was not surprising. They only vaguely felt if Wang Mi was too flattering. At the meeting, it was discussed to seek refuge with Lu Yuan, but the most difficult hurdle for people to overcome was the psychological one. However, now Wang Mi has helped everyone overcome this hurdle. Compared to that, Lu Ling couldn't help but feel disdainful as he looked at Wang Mi's posture. I couldn't help but show a hint of disdain as I thought about how Wang Mi pretended to compete with me for the commander-in-chief of the uprising. For Wang Mi, since he has decided to seek refuge with Lu Yuan, he cannot hold his airs. Now with such a posture, it seems like he has lost some prestige, but in reality, it has made Lu Yuan feel even more at ease. And I can also take advantage of this opportunity to see who is really willing to follow me and who is ready to take this opportunity to join Lu Yuan. It was the uprising army led by Wang Mi himself, so it is even clearer that this uprising army is surrounded by mountains and various people. But no matter how close Lu Yuan is to himself, it is impossible for him to fully control this army in his own hands. That's why Wang Mi plans to use this opportunity to get rid of the bad and retain the good. As for Lu Tai, what ideas can he have? Lu Tai just needs to stay firmly by Wang Mi's side. Since you have made up your mind, don't be half-hearted until you have independent thoughts. And when Lu Yuan heard Wang Mi's words, his gaze changed as he spoke. Gu Ben said that a general is like the ears of Duke Zhou of Dou. Today, I am Kongming and Zhonghua. Liezu once said, I have a general like a fish with water. Quickly, Lu Yuan welcomed Wang Mi inside, and Lu Tai and other generals under Wang Mi did not show any neglect, holding a quite grand banquet with each other. Lu Tai was far away from the communication between Wang Mi and Lu Yuan, so he didn't hear about it. However, Lu Tai took this opportunity to eat some roasted whole lamb. After all, in this era, I haven't eaten meat for a long time. Now that I have the opportunity to eat meat, how can I miss it? Lu Tai wolfed down about 7 or 8 lamb ribs before seeing Wang Zhang holding a wine jug and smiling at him. Second uncle. Lu Tai took a slight breath, feeling a bit ashamed of his appearance. Eat slowly, don't choke. I have wine here, do you want to taste it? Wang Zhang seduced Lu Tai. No, general, drinking too much will cause trouble. Lu Tai shook his head and said, and I have to go back to the military camp later. You. Wang Zhang couldn't help but shake his head when he heard Lu Tai's words, but his expression quickly changed. You have a calm temperament, and in the days to come, there may be some noise in the army. You just need to remember to follow your uncle Wang closely. Is there anyone who doesn't listen and wants me to take care of him? Lu Tai replied as soon as he heard Wang Zhang's words. Don't just focus on fighting and killing. Wang Zhang heard Lu Tai's words and patted his head. We are no longer moth thieves, and we have some identity as a Han army, so there will inevitably be some changes. However, these are none of your business, you just need to remember, just follow Uncle Wang. Wang Zhang also knew that Lu Tai was his own nephew, so there were some things that needed to be reminded to Lu Tai. Because Lu Tai has always been very clear about things, he is not afraid that Lu Tai will run away with Lu Ling and others. But Wang Zhang was afraid that Lu Tai would think that Lu Ling and others were untrustworthy, so he ran over to confront Lu Ling and instead hurt himself. This grudge would end, but in reality, it was unnecessary. Because Wang Mi wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to select elite members from the uprising army to become his true core headquarters. Even if Lu Yuan can rest assured of Wang Mi, he absolutely does not want to be at his core. Wang Mi alone controls about 50,000 armed forces, so being able to sleep every night can only be considered heartwarming. As for Lu Ling and others, they couldn't have been completely convinced of Wang Mi, but they took advantage of this opportunity to eliminate him. It can be said that with the meeting between Wang Mi and Lu Yuan, this reorganization was almost a tacit agreement among all three parties. Otherwise, Wang Mi would not have acted like this when meeting Lu Yuan, and Lu Yuan was also executed by a human spirit pushing the boat with ease. Of course, Lu Yuan could not directly deprive all the forces under Wang Mi's command. It's not that I'm afraid there won't be anyone else to surrender, but rather a very practical problem, because people are not NPCs, and it's not like you can immediately lead this group of people by changing generals. Now Wang Mi and Lu Yuan have at least a friendship with each other, and they are even more willing to serve for thousands of miles. Regardless of this benchmark, for any mature politician, not only will they not be suppressed, but they will be entrusted with important responsibilities. After all, the external reality is that Jin was strong while Han was weak, and Lu Yuan was not the brainless Sima family. After finishing the banquet, Lu Tai returned to the military camp outside the city of Zhuogua instead of staying overnight inside the city. After all, coming to such an unfamiliar place as Zhuoguacheng, being in a military camp, can bring a sense of security to oneself. Then, Lu Tai decisively woke up Chu Ji Jiu. At this moment, Chu Ji Jiu blurred his eyes and yawned, saying, "It's already so dark, can't you let me have a good night's sleep?" Chu Ji Jiu couldn't help but move his nose. "I secretly brought back some of the wine bestowed by the king of Han. I don't like the wine, but I believe you will like the sacrificial wine." Lu Tai looked at Chu's sacrificial wine and said, "Can you please cook the wine while offering the sacrificial wine and help me clarify?" Chu Ji Jiu heard Lu Tai's words and looked at him with a slightly complicated expression in his eyes, but he also calmly said, "Perhaps you are not afraid that I will be malicious again and plan for the Jin court. The plan for sacrificial offerings is fine. Anyway, I am just a 12-year-old child, relying on Uncle Wang to survive." Lu Tai said and sent someone to light the fire, starting to heat up the brought wine. "You're relieved. Speak up, what's going on?" Chu Ji Jiu looked at Lu Tai, but also sighed helplessly. 12 years old, even if he wanted to have some plans for him, at this age, Chu Ji Jiu was very helpless. "I'm too young, I have a weak heart." Lu Tai took the initiative to talk about the performance between Wang Mi and Lu Yuan, and it has to be said that Lu Tai really doesn't understand. Because Lu Tai felt that Wang Mi did not need to downgrade his status like this, even if he appeared slightly arrogant in front of Lu Yuan. After all, Wang Mi hasn't joined Lu Yuan yet. Can't we wait until he joins and then straighten out his posture? This Dong Lai Wang Mi is truly a hero. Chu Ji Jiu heard Lu Tai's words but said solemnly, "Lu Yuan's heart is as deep as the sea, Wang Mi is as cunning as a fox, and the Jin court has suffered many disasters." Chu Ji Jiu, Lu Tai added a strong accent and spoke, "Can you say something I can understand?" Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, Chu Ji Jiu looked at Lu Tai at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com with disdain, but patiently said, "Since the camp owner wants to listen, then let me tell him. Simply put, Wang Shui plans to split the uprising army, and those who do not obey him will be taken over by Lu Yuanhai, but the elite members of the uprising army plan to hold on to their own hands. Originally, it was not easy for Lu Yuanhai to take the initiative to do this, but now with Wang Shui's performance, it is easy to attract people in the uprising who are dissatisfied with Wang Shui to take action. Just wait, in a few days, there will definitely be a portion of the uprising army who will actively seek refuge with Lu Yuanhai. Uncle Wang is amazing." Lu Tai nodded thoughtfully when he heard Chu Ji Jiu's words. This move not only selects elite forces from among them, but also eliminates opposition forces. In the future, commanding soldiers will be even more effortless, and we will no longer be like in the Battle of Luoyang. Our uprising army may appear to have a large number of people, but in reality, it will be shattered at a single touch. And some people take over with the Han King, which can also diversify risks but create new bonds. Uncle Wang seems genuinely prepared to follow the Han King. Listening to Lu Tai's indifferent analysis, Chu Ji Jiu looked at Lu Tai with a hint of suspicion in his eyes. This little moth thief is 12 years old, right? To be honest, Chu Ji Jiu originally thought that Lu Tai needed to further analyze, but he didn't expect that he only had a slight understanding of Wang Mi's initiative to dismiss his soldiers and select elite soldiers. Lu Tai then saw through everything. Is it true that there is wisdom in this world? Chu Ji Jiu thought of this and couldn't help but take a sip of the wine. His entire tongue suddenly shrank back, so hot. This wine is boiling too hot. Chapter 6. The Treasure of the Book of Han. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With Chu Ji Jiu's explanation, Lu Tai more or less understood this matter and smiled as he bid farewell to Chu Ji Jiu. As the saying goes, Chu Ji Jiu is not of the same class as himself, and even has a criminal record of encouraging himself to persuade Wang Mi to join the Jin court. This made Lu Tai need Chu Ji Jiu to help him analyze certain things, but through Chu Ji Jiu analysis, he needed to go back and sort out his thoughts and gains, rather than just listening to Chu Ji Jiu. Because Chu Ji Jiu may not harm himself, but he will definitely guide himself. After all, the two of them stand in different classes. As Chu Ji Jiu watched Lu Tai understand Wang Mi's methods, he bid farewell cleanly and couldn't help but be stunned. Is this guy so confident that I don't need to continue working as a staff officer? Chu Ji Jiu couldn't understand Lu Tai's resignation. At least in Chu's contemplation of sacrificial wine, according to normal logic, I have already analyzed it so thoroughly for you. Don't you want to hear what I can do to maximize your benefits from this situation? Not to mention, at least in Chu Ji Jiu's view, with the help of Lu Tai's innate divine power, it is still possible to plan something. As Lu Ling instigated the uprising army to break away from Wang Mi, as long as Lu Tai took the initiative to attack the large and small hills that followed Lu Ling, and beat them in a circle, since he showed his loyalty to Wang Mi, he also helped Wang Mi's subordinates vent their grievances. The most important thing is to demonstrate one's own strength. Perhaps it can still fall into Lu Yuan's eyes, and then Lu Tai's value will be great. For Chu Ji Jiu, since he cannot return to the Jin court now, using Lu Tai to influence Wang Mi and even Lu Yuan may be a pretty good choice. But to his surprise, Lu Tai didn't give himself such a chance. After listening to the analysis, he ran away. Is this guy a dog? Forget it, let's continue boiling and drinking the wine. Chu Ji Jiu also indulged in hardship and continued to drink. Lu Tai returned to his camp, lit the flames, and then began to take out a carving knife and carve symbols on the bamboo slips. Uncle Wang took the initiative to join up with Lu Yuan in order to thoroughly grasp the essence of the uprising army and eliminate the forces that did not belong to him from the uprising army. With the purification of the team, he can really help the insurgent army and complete the change from the uprising army to the real army. And what benefits can I gain in this process, and what image should I establish? Lu Tai pondered for a moment, squinted his eyes slightly, and gestured with a carving knife in his hand, but he said thoughtfully. When you can't see the future clearly, then return to the main contradiction in society. Although Lu Yuan's country name is Han, he is still a Xiongnu. Although Uncle Wang seems to be quite convinced of Lu Yuan, he is still Han Chinese in essence. Although ethnic conflicts have gradually risen, in reality, the main contradiction of the entire Jin court is not yet ethnic conflicts, nor even the contradiction between the impoverished people and the wealthy aristocratic families. The real contradiction is still the uneven distribution of spoils among the class rulers within the Jin court. If Wang Shu could take Luoyang with all his might, it would become a contradiction between the ruling class of the Jin court and the vast masses represented by the uprising army, as the Jin Tingguo was conquered. But Uncle Wang did not achieve this, so the framework of the Jin court remains unchanged, the main contradictions of the entire world have not changed, and the overall situation of the world has not changed either. Now the alliance between Wang Shu and Lu Yuan can be seen as a collaboration between the Han ethnic minorities and the common class of the Jin Dynasty. No, not just that. Uncle Wang comes from the Donglai Wang family, and his ancestors were also aristocratic families, so he can even be seen as a combination of Han ethnic minorities and aristocratic families. The core point of their combination is Han. Lu Tai carved a Chinese character on the bamboo slip and gazed at it. At this moment, Lu Tai suddenly became broad and cheerful. It was as if the thick mist before me had been suddenly swept away at this moment. Yes, Lu Yuan was actually from the Xiongnu, and Wang Shu would join him because of the Han Dynasty. This is not only because Lu Yuan received the baptism of Han culture from a young age, but more importantly, because Jin did a terrible job. So the word Han is more attractive to the Han people, and the only way for ethnic minorities to rule such a large area of Han people is to achieve Sinicization, which can be said to be the only way for ethnic minorities to dominate China. Lu Tai silently carved bamboo slips, slowly sorting out his next situation. Although I am not very familiar with the history of the northern and southern dynasties, at least I know about the reforms of Emperor Xiaowen of Northern Wei. That is to say, the Sinicization policy of the Xiongnu and Han Kingdom was definitely a failure, so I have some idea what I should do. Lu Tai took a deep breath and became increasingly clear about the future situation. As the saying goes, I should always stand firm in the Han Dynasty. The title of King of Qingzhou deserves to be called. Lu Tai's eyes rolled as he thought of this and said, "It's best to push Uncle Wang to be Han's signature and hide behind him as much as possible. That being the case, Han will become my only position." A person's methods can be ruthless and ruthless, how can they be grand and grand, but their stance must be steadfast and consistent throughout. If one's position is constantly wavering, then there will never be a chance to become a true leader. And on the day when the Sinicization of the Xiongnu and the Han Kingdom failed, it was only natural to incite an uprising by Wang Shu or by himself. When Lu Tai thought of this, his thoughts suddenly became clear, and it didn't seem so difficult to accept sacrificing his life for Lu Yuan. Since the Xiongnu Han Kingdom is now called Han, I will firmly support Han. When the reform of the Xiongnu Han Kingdom failed and they could not raise the banner of Han, they could also seize the opportunity to leave. Having figured this out, Lu Tai turned around and couldn't help but smile at the performance of Wang Mi and Lu Yuan this time. As Uncle Tongzhang said, "Do you need to take any excessive actions?" "Not needed. All I need is just to follow Wang Mi and accumulate my strength." Even now that he is considered a regular army of the Han Kingdom, it is reasonable to ask the Xiongnu Han Kingdom for some logistical materials such as food, armor, weapons, etc. The next day, the sky was still hazy and Lu Tai, with dark circles under his eyes, had already approached Wang Zhang. "Ha!" Wang Zhang yawned and looked at the sky, which was still gray. He spoke up, "Tai, what's up with coming to see your second uncle so early?" "Uncle Heir, we have now surrendered to the state of Han. Should Han give us some food, weapons, armor, salaries?" Lu Tai was not polite. When he was a rebel army, he lacked everything. Now that he had defected to the Xiongnu and Han states, they must have taken care of these things. Otherwise, he wouldn't have defected to the Xiongnu and Han states in vain. Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, Wang Zhang couldn't help but look up and down at Lu Tai and exclaim, "I knew you didn't get up early without any benefits. You go back and continue training. I'll go ask your Uncle Wang and I'll get back to you in the next few days." "Thank you very much, Uncle Heir," Lu Tai said with a hint of embarrassment on his face. "Speak up, what else is there?" Wang Zhang said again as he watched Lu Tai wriggling and not leaving. "Now that I have arrived in the state of Han, I am looking for one or two scholars who have a rough understanding of the Book of Han to teach me how to read and read. I wonder if you have any recommendations, Uncle Heir." Lu Tai quickly made his own request to Wang Zhang. "You must not act recklessly." Wang Zhang took the initiative to speak when he heard Lu Tai's words. After all, he knew how the Chu sacrificial wine in Lu Tai's camp came about. In the past, when Su Chang had just been captured, he was naturally arrogant, but now that he has just arrived at Swo Guocheng, Wang Zhang does not want Lu Tai to cause any trouble. Wang Zhang pondered for a while, but then said to Lu Tai, "Uncle has taken this matter to heart. Whenever I have time, I will find a scholar who is proficient in the Book of Han for you. Don't do anything chaotic in Zhuo Guocheng, as it will add trouble to your uncle Wang. Tai Ming is innocent." Lu Tai agreed calmly upon hearing Wang Zhang's words. However, Wang Zhang suddenly regained his senses and said, "Why do you want to learn the Book of Han? Nowadays, with the rise and fall of Jin and the restoration of Han, if one does not know the history of Han and the customs of Han, how can one feel at ease and resist Jin and restore Han?" Lu Tai said calmly. Having identified his own positioning, Lu Tai's actions have more or less taken for granted. And precisely because Lu Tai genuinely recognizes this matter, his actions are even more candid and won't cause any discord. To be honest, although Lu Tai is now speaking passionately, in fact, last night, he also pondered for a long time and finally determined the first edition of his military textbook, which is the Book of Han. Why not mention the Book of Later Han, because no one has written it yet. History books, for children, can be quite boring, but for adult men, everyone hopes to read more history books and then ramble and ramble. At least in the military, it can be considered a barely acceptable textbook. Otherwise, would Lu Tai have to find a way to create the 1,000-character classic and the 3-character classic? Save it, Lu Tai can't do it. For Lu Tai, since he was determined to strive with Han as the core and needed to rise up in the event of the failure of the Sinicization reform of the Xiongnu and Han states in the future, it was necessary to have good ideological control over his own army. Because it can be said that this is the most different place where Lu Tai leads the army compared to other people leading the army in this era. In Lu Tai's view, ideological and political armed forces are the first element that needs to be grasped. A strong army indeed only needs to follow orders, but a strong army with ideas can make them the ultimate winner in dire straits by relying on their own willpower. But when it comes to thinking, the first thing is not to engage in personal worship, because if one engages in this kind of behavior over time, not only Lu Yuan, but also Wang Mi may not be able to tolerate oneself. At the same time, it is impossible for oneself to have inconsistent positions before and after. For example, if I had been promoting loyalty to the monarch and love for the country in the front, then I rebelled at my heels to create a rebellion against the Xiongnu and Han kingdom. Just look at the fate of Sima Shi for someone who has 2 sides and 3 knives. At the front heel, Sima Yi swore to Luo Shui, which became farting. At the back heel, Sima Zhao allowed his subordinates to assassinate the emperor on the street, completely creating a situation where the emperor took turns sitting. Then the Sima family took control of the world, but the world was already gloomy in the hands of the Sima family from the beginning. A country dare not even advocate loyalty, and striving to be strong can only say filial piety. If such a country does not perish, who will perish? So, since Lu Tai wants to arm his army ideologically and enhance its sense of honor, he naturally does not advocate loyalty or filial piety, and only advocates Han. At this time, Lu Yuan was in power in the Xiongnu Han kingdom, and because he was not familiar with history, he did not know what Lu Yuan was really thinking in his heart. But no matter what, since he raised the banner of the Han dynasty high, the propaganda in the Book of Han, among his soldiers is the national history of the Han dynasty, which can be considered as a correct political stance. At the same time, I advocated for the history of the Han dynasty and provided a unified ideology and culture for my soldiers, and this nationalist ideology is not considered an outdated culture even in the 21st century. In this era, the Han ethnic group is at the peak of civilization, and in the 4th century, it is the most advanced culture. With this nationalism as an ideological arm, to be honest, Lu Tai feels that it is really quite sufficient. This is almost using weapons from the 20th century to defeat enemies from the 4th century. At most, this intangible weapon is called thought. Of course, if one can truly seize the world in the future, they will no longer be faced with blatant enemies, but with aristocratic families, Confucian culture, and even rules and regulations. This kind of Han culture, which has been established from the beginning, may become a sharp edge for everyone, to small families, country, to aristocratic families, and even Han culture, to Confucian classics culture. After all, the foundation for the growth of the aristocratic family was laid by Lu Xiu, who relied on the aristocratic family to gain the world. However, in the Jin Dynasty of the Sima family, this strain of poison completely grew, causing the 5 barbarians to flee south with their clothes and clothing. Now, if one truly gains the world under the name of Han in the future, their enemies will no longer be concrete opponents, but the aristocratic class, the manor economy, the Confucian culture, and the 9th grade system, which can be said to be a complete system of Han culture from top to bottom. I must sow the seeds now, use time to irrigate and grow, and in the future, when I face the old Han cultural system, I can eradicate it thoroughly. Instead of waiting until that time, when I need to rearrange and wait for a decade or two, I will reluctantly wait for my descendants to take the backhand that I have arranged and complete it 7 or 8 times, even wasting the backhand that I have arranged. Returning to the present, Lu Tai is particularly clear about his future path. As long as he knows that his actions are based on the Han dynasty, others may feel surprised by what he does next, but he may not be unable to understand it. Even other people who aspire to the Han dynasty may actively join his team. For Lu Tai, the Book of Han was the treasure of unifying his ideological armed forces and borrowing chickens to lay eggs under the watchful eyes of the Xiongnu and Han states. Chapter 7. Sincerity of Both Parties. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Because reading and writing were not an easy task in this era, otherwise, I wouldn't need to tie Chu Ji Jiu, who was clearly a staunch member of the Jin Dynasty, to my side. So, this matter really requires Wang Zhang, the son of a noble family, to search. After all, even if Wang Zhang is a son of a noble family, it is not easy to find a scholar who understands the Book of Han. However, Lu Tai is not in a hurry, just wait patiently. After all, it is a long process to arm the soldiers in terms of ideology, and there is no rush. If they can achieve a small success in 3 or 4 years, Lu Tai will be very satisfied. By comparison, Lu Tai now plans to take advantage of this opportunity in Zhuoguocheng to seek assistance that can increase the combat effectiveness of the army. Without much thought, the profession of military doctor immediately appeared in Lu Tai's mind. I used to be a bandit, so it was unrealistic to establish a medical system. But now that I am a regular army, the medical system definitely needs to be improved. And this kind of thing doesn't mean you want to do it today, you can do it tomorrow. The cultivation of the doctor profession can be said to be the most time-consuming. So, Lu Tai immediately began to gather information about the doctors in the city of Zhuoguo. In addition to the information about the doctors, Lu Tai also began to gather information about the cloth village in the local area. Of course, Lu Tai cannot let go of the training and learning of his soldiers in his camp, so he is still quite busy and fulfilling. And the atmosphere of the entire uprising army has gradually become noisy these days. Lu Ling has started to jump up and down in the uprising army to recruit people, even Lu Tai and Lu Ling have come to inquire whether to follow him. However, Lu Tai could also see that Lu Ling was at most polite to him, fearing that he had not reported any expectations. After all, Lu Tai's attitude has always shown a firm Wang Mi faction. Lu Ling came to say hello. Strictly speaking, it was not really to come and win over Lu Tai, but to show that you are the #1 figure in the uprising army, so give face. And Lu Tai's act of attracting people was bestowed upon Lu Lingdang as the general of bandits by Lu Yuan, and even his position seemed to be larger than that of Wang Mi, because Wang Mi was only the captain of the Silly Academy, which was also Lu Ling's courage to actively attract people. This led the less determined rebels in the uprising army, especially some neutral opportunists, to defect to Lu Ling. But if you observe carefully, you will find that the several core figures around Wang Mi, including Wang Zhang, Wang Sang, Chao Yi, Zhao Gu, and others, have not wavered. As some people leave, small hills like Su Mao, Wang Yan, Gao Yang, and Lu Tai, which are about 51,000, have also been noticed by Wang Mi, and there are only about 30,000 people left to continue following them. Although the number of soldiers has decreased, Lu Tai can be certain that commanding this legion now is definitely easier than commanding 70,000 or 80,000 members of the rabble, and can even withstand the maximum damage. It should be able to reach the normal level of ancient soldiers, which is about one layer of casualties. However, the chaos in the uprising army has nothing to do with Lu Tai, as long as he firmly supports Wang Mi's side. Through these days, Lu Tai has found the doctor he wants and the shop where he needs linen. However, when Lu Tai touched his pocket, he found that he couldn't even find a 5 baht coin. If this was not under Lu Yuan's nose, then Lu Tai might have sent soldiers to forcibly rob, but now Lu Tai has decisively turned around and gone to find Wang Zhang. When Wang Zhang saw Lu Tai knocking on his door, he was quite happy and said, "I have already found the teacher who is proficient in the Book of Han for you. In a few days, I will go to your military camp." Lu Tai couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief upon hearing Wang Zhang's words and said, "Thank you very much, Uncle Heir. However, I came here today not for the sake of being a scholar in the Book of Han, but because I wanted to ask Uncle Heir for some money." "How much?" Wang Zhang didn't take Lu Tai's words seriously. Lu Tai usually never takes the initiative to plunder gold, silver, and treasures, and even if he surrenders to Lu Yuan now, he does not receive any salary. In this situation, both Wang Mi and Wang Zhang are more or less aware that Lu Tai has no money on him. Lu Tai pondered for a moment and replied, "About 10 gold coins." "How much?" Wang Zhang's voice suddenly rose upon hearing these words, his gaze fixed on Lu Tai and he said, "Did you go to Nolu?" "Female Lu." "What kind of female Lu?" Lu Tai calmly replied, "I want to recruit a few medical craftsmen to join the army, responsible for treating some simple external injuries. In addition, I need to purchase some linen cloth for soldiers to make leggings." "You have taken good care of the soldiers in your camp, Zhou Dao." Wang Zhang heard Lu Tai's words and instructed, "I lent you this money today, but I will repay it to Uncle Heir in the future. In the future, when we arrive at the battlefield, we will also be more agile. Now that we are a regular army, after capturing the city, don't just focus on grabbing food, gold, silver, and jewelry. They will eventually be useful." Wang Zhang spoke calmly and did not feel surprised by the two things Lu Tai proposed. Because whether it was a medical craftsman or a legginger, Wang Zhang, a noble family with a certain military heritage, actually knew about it. The invention of leggings is actually not uncommon, because its initial purpose was to reduce the impact of weeds and gravel on soldiers during infantry marching. This is the most needed artifact for infantry who need to march dozens of miles a day without moving. At most, the production method is somewhat different from that of modern leggings, but it can be seen from the terracotta warriors of the first emperor that the ancient army has had the rudiments of leggings, which must have developed in the Jin Dynasty. However, compared to increasing the mobility of soldiers by adding leggings, people like Wang Mi and Wang Zhang feel that spending money is not cost-effective. Firstly, in this era, human life is not valuable in the overall environment, but equipping oneself with weapons is even more valuable. And leggings are destined to be consumables, and if you want to promote them on a large scale, you must have a relatively stable logistics. Otherwise, not to mention that Wang Mi cannot afford this money, even if he can afford it, he may not have so many supplies in the end. After all, Wang Mi still has around 30,000 people in his hands now. Now, Lu Tai has come to demand it, because Lu Tai's camp only has over 400 people, and Wang Zhang can afford to pay for so many people. But even so, Lu Tai's money was not given by Wang Mi, but borrowed from Wang Zhang. Even if Lu Tai knew, even if he didn't repay Wang Zhang, he wouldn't say much, but after all, it was a reasonable reason to refuse. Quickly, Wang Zhang brought 10 gold coins and asked Lu Tai to purchase linen to make leggings. For Wang Zhang, Lu Tai was able to proactively rescue his brother Wang Mi during a crisis, which was naturally his own brother. Not to mention that Lu Tai can be considered to have grown up on his own to some extent, so he naturally won't be stingy with his money. After instructing Lu Tai to send a team of people and horses to collect the cloth, Wang Zhang immediately went to find Wang Mi. For Wang Zhang, Lu Tai's situation was just a small matter. After all, Lu Tai's army was only 400 or 500 people at the end. The matter he had to discuss with Wang Mi now was the big deal, so when facing Wang Mi, Wang Zhang dared not show any negligence. When Wang Zhang saw Wang Mi, he was also staring at a report that was ready to be presented. Upon seeing Wang Zhang's arrival, Wang Mi said, "Tar, what's going on here today? You want to borrow some gold and silver from me to recruit some medical craftsmen, and buy some linen to make leggings." Wang Zhang said, "I think I climbed the Taihang mountains and knew it was not easy to walk, so I found a way to improve my military equipment, and I agreed. Tai Er is close to you, just arrange these trivial matters for him." Wang Mi nodded. "You have put in a lot of effort to find a teacher who understands the Book of Han for Tai Er. After all, it's easy to find someone who can read these days, but it's really not easy to find someone who understands the Book of Han." Wang Zhang smiled and shook his head. "Not to mention these things." Wang Mi handed the memorial to Wang Zhang and said, "What do you think of this move? Many of our soldiers have already been taken away by Lu Ling. Lu Yuan is a visionary person who understands the principle that too much is better than too much. We worked for him, and he should have rewarded us greatly. Now that we have submitted this memorial, he should understand our meaning. If he can't even understand this, then he's definitely not the master. Our brothers need to plan ahead." Wang Zhang said with a serious expression. Wang Mi nodded when he heard Wang Zhang's words. This time joining Lu Yuan can be considered a heavy investment for oneself, which is a reflection of one's past understanding of Lu Yuan and also a consideration of one's own perspective. I can be under Lu Yuan, but I must be at the core level of Lu Yuan. This memorial form is my own bargaining chip, representing the acceptance and recognition of Lu Yuan as a symbol of the Xiongnu and Han Kingdom by the Han ethnic group. At the same time, it is also a warning to Lu Yuan. I have already done almost everything, and now it should be up to Lu Yuan." Wang Mi took a deep breath, picked up his watch again and looked at it, but made up his mind and stood up to leave the mansion. At the same time, Lu Yuan was surrounded by his 4 great advisors. Lu Huanle, Lu Yin, Wang Yu, and Zhu Ji. Lu Yuan slowly spoke up and said, "Wang Mi's move of taking a step back and making progress shows his sincerity. Obviously, he is genuinely leaning towards the orphan and has no intention of occupying the magpie's nest. Nowadays, there are only a few heroes in the world like Wang Mi. If we treat him poorly, I'm afraid all the heroes in the world will think that he has a narrow mind and cannot tolerate handsome people." "Great king, don't worry," Wang Yu said slowly. "Since Wang Mi has chosen to advance by retreating, he only needs to reduce his troops militarily, but he still doesn't show sincerity. After all, the soldiers under his command were the uprising soldiers he brought all the way from Qingzhou, mixed with dragons and snakes. Perhaps Wang Mi himself wanted to take this opportunity to clean up. Dismissing soldiers is not the bottom line for Wang Mi, too much is not enough." Lu Huanle glanced at Wang Yu and said slowly, "Regardless of whether Wang Mi has any intention of picking up and cleaning up the aircraft, it is undeniable that for any commander, the dismissal of soldiers itself has the intention of breaking their ties. At least Wang Mi has shown sincerity now. If we treat him unfairly, how can we demonstrate the king's tolerance?" Lu Yuan looked at the argument between his 2 subordinates and Lu Yin, who had been keeping his eyes closed and focused, and said, "Changsheng, why are you still silent so far?" Lu Yin heard Lu Yuan's words but said slowly, "Do you think Captain Wang Mi is a hero? Wang Mi, the Donglai Wang family behind him, is even more of a hero of the times, so be a hero." Lu Yuan pondered for a moment and said, "Since the king believes that Wang Mi is a hero, then it seems that Wang Mi has already retired and should be entering now." Lu Yin said, "Only when he enters, can we know what he wants, right?" Quickly, the instrument presented by Wang Mi was delivered to Lu Yuan's hands, and Lu Yuan trembled slightly as he watched the instrument presented. Lu Yuan handed the memorial to a few people and sighed, "Wang Mi advised me to ascend to the throne of God." Indeed, Wang Mi sincerely came to bid. A group of advisors looked at the persuasion letter sent by Wang Mi and couldn't help but marvel that Wang Mi had indeed entered Lu Yuan's heart with this step forward. Wang Mi no longer needs to reveal what he really wants, because for Lu Yuan, as long as Wang Mi admits to being under him, there is nothing he cannot give. This persuasion form itself represents Wang Mi's submission, and Lu Yuan does not care about other details. Quickly, as Lu Tai in Wang Mi's military camp, he noticed that the communication between Zhuo Guicheng and the camp suddenly became closer. Various supplies, big and small, were constantly transported to the military camp, including not only food and weapons, but most importantly, armor. Although it was quite common leather armor, Lu Tai's eyes also lit up. Lu Tai decisively approached Wang Zhang and said, "Second uncle, did our military camp send leather armor? Don't you have armor anymore, and it's still a shining armor?" Wang Zhang looked at Lu Tai and felt that he had grown taller these days. "But my personal guards are not lacking." Lu Tai pestered Wang Zhang and looked for the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. "Uncle Heir, give me 100, just 100 pieces. Get lost, I'll give you at most 20, there's really nothing more left." Wang Zhang shook his head at Lu Tai. "These armor pieces are what Uncle Wang sold himself to come with, totaling only over 500 pieces. It's not easy to get them." "Uncle Wang, are you going to sell yourself? Do you think I'm going to sell myself too? How many items can I get?" Lu Tai said without any bottom line. Go on, go on. You little one wants to sell it, but no one else will accept it." Wang Zhang waved his hand and said, "I'll batch you 20 pieces of leather armor later, don't keep pestering here." "Oh." Lu Tai nodded and decisively went to collect his own armor. As for Wang Mi selling himself, Lu Tai is not interested in how to sell himself. After all, everyone is an adult, and Wang Mi's decisions will definitely be measured by himself. In fact, at least in Wang Mi's own opinion, although he sold himself, he actually sold it for a good price. Those positions that are empty-headed and brainless don't matter. The most important thing is that Wang Mi's uprising army is not directly under the jurisdiction of Lu Yuan. For Wang Mi, this is enough. At least in Wang Mi's opinion, Lu Yuan's ability to do so has fully demonstrated his sincerity. But in reality, Wang Mi looked at Lu Yuan with the eyes of a Han Chinese. Although Lu Yuan had already become very cynicized, he still had the habits of the Xiongnu in his military system, as Lu Yuan's military system still retained the habits of the grassland tribe system. So, not to mention Wang Mi, people like Lu Tsong, Lu Yao, Shi Lu, and others all have their own military power that is not under the jurisdiction of Lu Yuan. This is a beautiful misunderstanding, but at least under this beautiful misunderstanding, Wang Mi thinks that Lu Yuan is still very atmospheric. Chapter 8. Adequate Preparation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The communication between Wang Mi and Lu Yuan is still too distant for Lu Tai. Anyway, I'm working under Wang Mi's command, so I can't miss out on it now that I can get some advantage in the left country city. The first ones to enter the military camp were several younger medical workers, led by a medical worker named Meng Dong. In the future, you will become our people. Apart from having to run early with the soldiers every day, there are no mandatory requirements for you. Of course, if you know how to teach texts, then come and help the soldiers read. Lu Tai said. General, do we still need to run with the soldiers? How far do we need to run? Meng Dong decisively filtered out the words behind Lu Tai. After all, when Lu Tai recruited them, he only said he wanted to make a living in the military camp, but he didn't say he wanted to receive military training. You will need to fight with the army in the future. Let's not mention anything else, but your physical fitness must keep up. Lu Tai waved his hand to Meng Dong. Although you don't need to go to the battlefield, you definitely need to treat the wounded on the front line. So besides physical fitness, if you still have some innate talents, you can also learn one or two life-saving killing moves. Meng Dong and other medical workers heard Lu Tai's words, and their faces became even paler. Of course, I can't guarantee anything, but what I can at least guarantee is that the only possibility that you will encounter danger is that our soldiers have already died in battle. Lu Tai reached out and clenched his fist, promising several people. General, I don't want this gold grain anymore. Can you let me go home? Although Lu Tai was very touched by what he said, going to the battlefield is something that some people cannot bear. At this moment, he decisively returned Lu Tai's hard-earned money and knelt on the ground, kowtowing his head. What about you? Lu Tai's gaze swept over the other few people. These guys all knelt down and cried for their parents. They lifted the gold grain Lu Tai gave them and voluntarily returned it to Lu Tai. Although the skills of oneself and others are not very advanced, they are actually medical craftsmen who rely on their abilities to make a living, and there is no need to risk their lives. Get lost. Lu Tai didn't force anyone, but the most important thing was that this was Lu Yuan's territory, so he had to reason for himself. These people quickly returned the gold grain to Lu Tai and then fled from this military camp. General, can you give me all the gold particles in your hand? Meng Dong slowly asked Lu Tai. Oh, did you agree to stay? Lu Tai couldn't help but feel a little delighted as he looked at Meng Dong. At least someone was willing to stay. Meng Dong nodded and said, General, you can reason. There aren't many generals who reason these days, especially a large part of the Xiongnu people in Zhuoguoqing who don't reason. So I think maybe the military camp may not be more dangerous than outside. Then take it. Lu Tai smiled and handed the gold grain in his hand to Meng Dong, saying, Here you are. Monthly salary. Meng Dong looked at Lu Tai with a hint of suspicion. These gold grains were valuable to the people. What are you thinking? It's the startup funds for you. Lu Tai Bai glanced at it. I want to be able to quickly stop bleeding, treat external injuries, and even some relatively simple marching diseases after the war. What kind of medicine are needed? Take advantage of these days to prepare, and when Wang Shui goes on the expedition, you will also have to follow. Oh. Meng Dong's morale dropped a bit, but he still responded. Lu Tai looked at Meng Dong's low morale and couldn't help but mutter to himself, this guy is full of negative energy. How can he do a good job? However, Lu Tai said, besides, for the next few days in our camp, besides your own salary, you can also come to me to receive additional compensation, mainly to help you write books and write works. Oh. Writing books and creating works. Meng Dong was stunned for a moment, feeling like Lu Tai in front of him was talking nonsense. Lu Tai spoke up and said, in the army, the number of soldiers who died directly due to war is not very large. More soldiers are injured or killed due to various factors such as marching, wound infections, fever, and diseases. Unfortunately, I am not very familiar with medical matters, but if you can accumulate your treatment experience in the military, and then organize it into a book to find patterns, become a true military medical book. Perhaps in the future, it will also be as famous in history as Zhang Zhongjing's treatise on cold damage and miscellaneous diseases. I can be as famous in history as Zhang Zhongjing. Meng Dong couldn't help but widen his eyes when he heard Lu Tai's words. It's definitely possible. Lu Tai took a deep breath and said to Meng Dong with an unquestionable tone. Lu Tai Kai doesn't care if he can succeed or not, but he needs to find a dream for him. After all, giving him a job on his own may not change him. He may just be planning to become a slacker. Moreover, I don't understand anything about medical matters. If Meng Dong wants to deceive himself and go fishing, it's really too simple. But giving him a dream on his own would be different. After all, what can burn people down is only their dreams, and most importantly, the battlefield medical technology was developed by Meng Dong, which is even more profitable for themselves. Anyway, at least Meng Dong was willing to stay and started his daily morning run with the soldiers every day. The medical camp recruited 5 and left 4, but Lu Tai didn't take this matter to heart. After all, isn't this one left behind? Lu Tai brought in Lu Ming, Gu Xian, Zhaoan, and Zhou Pingping's own centurion. I finally managed to grind a few leather armor pieces from my second uncle. The 4 of you come and collect 1 piece, and the rest of the leather armor should be handed over to the personal guards and cavalry. When the battlefield rushes, they can also eat some arrows. Lu Tai said. Thank you, young master. Thank you, camp leader. The few of them heard Lu Tai's words and went up to stroke their armor, their eyes showing even greater warmth and eagerness. Don't underestimate leather armor, although it is mainly used for defending arrows and does not cause significant damage to sharp blades. But in fact, in ancient times, even if the army wanted to complete full armor coverage on leather armor, it was not common. Even the leather armor in front of us takes 2 to 3 years to be made using ancient productivity, but in terms of defense, it is only slightly inferior to iron armor scales. Of course, the biggest advantage lies in its portability. At least for those who come from the rebel army, portability is still very important. Lu Tai sent the leather armor down as soon as he received it, but Lu Tai had to wait for the burlap. Because I don't have a lot of burlap in my hands, I need to save some. Wait until the soldiers need to set off before issuing the order. As for now, it's better to keep it in your own hands for now. But the dozen or so personal soldiers who were given these armor to themselves, as well as these centurions, also boosted the morale of everyone. The servants felt a bit envious of these leather armor, but they didn't say much. At least Lu Tai is an imposing person, which is enough for them. If there are any good things in the future, it will be their turn sooner or later. During Lu Tai's stable military training, the history teacher who was asked by Wang Zhang to teach the Book of Han arrived. I have met the Major General in Xiangyan Gongxiu. This scholar looks young, around 40 years old, with a tall body, giving off a feeling of a northern Han. Have you met Mr. Gongshi? I wonder if Uncle Air has told you about my requirements. The required scholars, it is best to follow the soldier's daily marching speed, so in order to cultivate your physical strength, you need to participate in the morning run following the soldiers every day. Lu Tai said immediately, of course, during the actual march, we will equip you with mounts to avoid the fatigue of your journey as much as possible. Young general, do you want to accompany the army on the expedition? Gong Xiu couldn't help but frown when he heard Lu Tai's words. I am not one of those dissolute scholars who aspires to become a class leader, but I have never heard of the saying of leading troops to fight and leading a professor of the Book of Han. Therefore, I would like to ask Major General Yu to give me a suitable explanation. Lu Tai heard Gong Xiu's tone with a hint of stubbornness, and couldn't help but ponder for a moment before speaking. The soldiers under my command are not Lu Taiji's private soldiers, but martyrs who are fighting against Jin and restoring Han. Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, Gong Xiu's gaze suddenly changed as he did not expect Lu Tai's reasons to be so noble. However, Lu Tai's words were not over yet. Instead, he continued, the foundation of the 400 years of the Great Han Dynasty was established by Emperor Gaozu's slaying of snakes, prospered by Emperor Wu's expulsion of the Xiongnu, and continued with the revival of Guangwu. Now, even the Han King continues our Great Han national fortune. How many benevolent and righteous people are willing to sacrifice themselves for the banner of the Han Dynasty, writing their own legends? Now, I hope you can assist me by telling the soldiers that Chen Tang, a prominent figure in the Han Dynasty, once said, those who clearly violate the strong Han will be executed even if they are far away. Han's Fu Jiezi spat out a sharp sword and said, the Han army has arrived, do not dare to move. Move and destroy the country. Han's Ban Biao submitted a memorial. Han upholds authority and leads all nations, shining with the sun and moon, all of whom are ministers and concubines. It is our duty as Han people to rebuild the glory of the Han Dynasty. Gong Xiu looked at Lu Tai's excitement and immediately understood that Lu Tai, like Lu Yuan, was proud of Han culture to some extent. For such Han fanatics, it seems not surprising that they would find themselves teaching their soldiers how to study Han literature. General Xiao, I understand. Gong Xiu pondered for a moment and said, then I will temporarily stay in General Xiao's camp. However, I have made it clear to the Major General beforehand that if I serve in the Han court in the future, please do not obstruct me. General, please rest assured, Mr. Gong Xiu. If you have a better place to go, Tai will not stop you. Lu Tai said decisively. How can we say it? Although since the Jin Dynasty, there has been a gradual trend of men smearing makeup and indulging in debauchery, it can still be understood that they were famous scholars of the Wei and Jin dynasties. But the martial spirit of the Han dynasty has not been completely extinguished, and military achievements are still the most reliable bargaining chip for the promotion of the entire court. So, rather than saying that Gong Xiu was interested in Lu Tai and agreed to stay in Lu Tai's military camp, it is more accurate to say that he saw Lu Tai as Wang Mi's nephew, and Wang Zhang personally found him. Therefore, Gong Xiu plans to use this opportunity to gild here. After all, no matter how one looks at Lu Tai, although his surname is Lu, the care of Wang Mi and Wang Zhang makes Lu Tai much safer. After successfully gilding here, I have an additional option for promotion in the court in the future. This is also the reason why Gong Xiu is willing to stay, otherwise. Are you still interested in the future of this 12-year-old child? So, although Lu Tai spoke passionately, in the eyes of Gong Xiu, it was just a child's perspective with a hint of either black or white. When he is polished by this chaotic world, he will naturally become like himself. As for whether I will be labeled as Wang Mi after following Wang Mi for a long time, to be honest, I don't care about Gong Xiu. After all, if I don't use Wang Mi as a channel, I'm afraid I won't even have a chance to step on stage. And Lu Tai decisively took Gong Xiu to search for Chu Ji Jiu. Lu Tai took the initiative to introduce them. Gong Ji Jiu, this is Chu Ji Jiu, responsible for the Mongolian education courses of the soldiers. Chu Ji Jiu, this is Gong Ji Jiu, responsible for teaching the Book of Han to the soldiers. The basic class time is after lunch, with a daily teaching time of about 1 hour. If there is a marching period, it will be arranged separately. Please slowly discuss the specific time arrangement based on the specific situation. After Lu Tai finished speaking, he voluntarily withdrew and handed over the space to the two of them. Chu Ji Jiu looked at Gong Xiu and slowly said, Gong Xiu. Is it Gong Xiu from Xiangqing? Exactly, I'm Gong Xiu. Gong Xiu nodded repeatedly upon hearing Chu Ji Jiu's words, his gaze fixed on Chu Ji Jiu, as if thinking of something, and he spoke, your surname is Chu, is it the Chu family of Yangzhai? I was captured by Lu Tai in Xia Chushi, and now I am teaching Lu Tai's soldiers here, which can be considered a place to go. At this moment, Chu Ting smiled quite self-deprecatingly and asked Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, Lu Tai truly respects me, and I don't want to serve the fake Han. So I became a prisoner here with Lu Tai, reading books and teaching beginners on a regular basis, which made me feel at ease. I understand now. Gong Xiu heard Chu Yan's words and looked at him with a hint of respect in his eyes. However, after learning about Chu Gui's identity, Gong Xiu completely followed Chu Gui's arrangements for tutorials and so on. Lu Tai originally thought that the two would have some disputes over the number of courses, but he didn't expect Gong Xiu to look quite fierce. However, when he saw Chu Ting, he softened a lot. At least in terms of teaching, Chu Ting was almost the main focus. Of course, although there is necessary physical training and cultural education every day. But in terms of battlefield command, Lu Tai did not relax at all, and worked hard to train them to quickly change formations when they saw flags. Lu Tai didn't expect to train anyone to perform any incredible maneuvers. He just hoped that when they saw the flag and heard the vocal music, they could immediately organize into a cone-shaped army formation, and then follow him to charge, which was enough. All I need is for them to engrave the cone-shaped army formation in their physical instincts. Lu Tai is aware that having innate divine power means having the potential to break through formations. If he chooses to command a large army, he is not unable to do so. But the commander of the large army has the greatest potential, at least he is not Han Xian. He can command the large army to fight and win with ease. So don't think too much, just follow the path of Mengfu. With the unified will of the soldiers and the martial courage brought by their innate divine power, you can directly encounter the opponent Mengfu in the military situation. If the opponent wants to intercept you, it may not be easy. At the same time, Wang Mi also received orders from Lu Yuan to rest and, together with Shi Lu, send troops to Yi City. Chapter 9. Opportunities brought by leggings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Before sending troops, Lu Yuan officially proclaimed himself emperor, granted amnesty to prisoners within his territory, and changed his reign name to Yongfeng. Appointed General Lu He as the Grand Marshal, conferred the title of Prince of Liang, Minister of Personnel Lu Huanle as the Grand Tutor, conferred the title of Prince of Chenlu, Grand Censor Hu Yanni as the Grand Minister, conferred the title of Duke of Yanmen County, and conferred the titles of Duke of County and County on the royal family based on kinship and kinship, while those with different surnames based on merit and strategy were conferred the titles of Duke of County and County. Not to mention, for example, Wang Mi became the great general of the East Expedition, Zhao Gu became the general of Anbei, and Chao Yi became the general of Anong, but he was still under the control of Wang Mi. Wang Sang also had the title of general, while Wang Zhang was more like a subordinate of Wang Mi, responsible for the internal affairs of Wang Mi's army and not directly rewarded by Lu Yuan. It was somewhat similar to a subordinate of mine, not mine. And Lu Tai also received a title, infantry colonel. If it were really during the Han Dynasty, this infantry colonel would still be quite valuable, and could be considered one of the 8 colonels in the imperial capital of Gongwei. But now he is just an ordinary colonel managing a staffing of 700 people, but Lu Tai's staffing is not yet fully staffed. The only fortunate thing is that perhaps he joined Lu Yuan, at least he managed the food, but it was only 2 meals. If he wanted to have 3 meals, he still needed to pay for it himself. In this regard, Lu Tai still has a long way to go in order to expand his army. But compared to when he was a bandit, there was 1 meal, not a meal, which has already reduced Lu Tai's pressure on food. As Lu Yuan ascended to the throne, he immediately dispatched a mission to Wang Mi to join forces with Shi Lu to attack Yi City. Is it war now? Lu Tai was slightly surprised when he heard the order from Wang Zhang. Why, want to continue living here? Wang Zhang smiled when he heard Lu Tai's words. Lu Tai shook his head and said, after practicing for so long these days, we also need to try the water. Who are we fighting against? Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, Wang Zhang couldn't help but feel emotional. If it were said that among the entire uprising army, whose army is usually the most hardworking, it would probably only be under Lu Tai's command. If Lu Tai were 30 years old now, he might still be able to secure a position in Xi'an. However, although Lu Tai may appear 13 or 14 years old, he is actually not even 13 years old. A colonel position is enough. Wang Zhang nodded and said, with this ambition, we can naturally achieve victory. We are preparing to go out of Taihang and attack Yi City. Yi City. Lu Tai nodded and said, got it, then I'll go back and prepare the food. Is there enough food? Wang Zhang couldn't help but wonder when he heard Lu Tai's words. With your care, Uncle Heir, there will naturally be enough food. Lu Tai smiled and said to Wang Zhang. That's good, we need to show some prestige this time, don't let Hu Heir underestimate us. Wang Zhang said. Lu Tai couldn't help but be taken aback when he heard this, but he didn't say much. He nodded heavily, indicating that he knew. It's not an easy task for this world army to break out. Although Lu Yuan had already ordered, the preparation time in the early stage was quite long. Apart from that, various equipment needed to be collected from the arsenal and then distributed to the soldiers below. Suitable for long-range marching, military rations such as non-cakes should be made in the city as much as possible, and then taken by soldiers to eat on the road. Especially for wealthy generals, they basically go all out to get themselves a suit of leather armor, at least able to defend against arrows. And when Lu Tai returned to the army, the first thing he did was make non-cakes. Because the system in Lu Tai's army is to eat 3 meals a day, which is one of the foundations of Lu Tai's military command and also his welfare. But after Wang Mi reorganized the army, Lu Tai was stationed in Zhuoguocheng and was able to eat 3 meals a day, just like starting his own small stove. But when it comes to actual marching, it becomes a bit different from when I was a refugee. Basically, I eat according to the drumbeat of the army. Even if I want to open a small stove, it's easy to talk to one person, but it's not realistic to open more than 400 people. So, Lu Tai needs to prepare more non-cakes as a supplement to the soldiers during their daily march, replacing the third meal. That is to say, there is a reason for the emergence of the Huotou army. To make soldiers have their third meal, it is necessary to cultivate one's own Huotou army. Lu Tai pressed his temple, but to his surprise, the first problem he encountered was this. However, once you find the problem, it's good. Anyway, you haven't used up your own staff yet, even if you recruit some top troops, you still have a staff. The real problem is that I plan to implement the 3-meal system, and the rate of food consumption far exceeds that of the 2-meal system. Now with Wang Zhang taking care of it and paying for it himself, it's easy to say, but it's not easy to continue increasing the scale. We need to find a way to get some money. Lu Tai frowned. I have already become a martial artist, why does the problem ultimately come down to needing money? Forget it, just money. You already have a knife in your hand. Are you afraid you can't think of a way to make money? Lu Tai didn't dwell on this matter anymore, just prepare honestly. At least accumulate every bit of strength as much as possible and walk steadily. For myself, it is always right. In addition to preparing grains that are more durable to store, it is more important to distribute burlap cloth to their subordinates one after another. After all, there's no need to say that if you need to send troops to Yi City, you have to climb the Taihang Mountains, and at this point, leggings can be used effectively. And when Lu Tai arrived in this city, he first purchased the hemp cloth, which finally came into play. Soon, an army led mainly by Wang Mi and supplemented by Jia people led by Shi Lu marched into Yi City. The combat effectiveness of a military may require real fighting to be seen, but the quality of an army can be reflected in its march. The number of troops led by Lu Tai is not large, but due to specialized training in arrays, the marching gives a sense of orderliness. Especially with the newly purged uprising army led by Wang Mitsai around, this gap is a stark contrast at a glance. General, I don't know who is leading the troops, but I have never seen such a capable army, said Shi Lu. It's my nephew Lu Tai. He usually values discipline the most and has trained many soldiers. It's not worth mentioning, it's not worth mentioning. Wang Mi proudly showed off to Shi Lu, but on the surface, he appeared humble. Wang Mi naturally knew about Lu Tai. After all, the food that Wang Zhang secretly gave to Lu Tai was not hidden from Wang Mi. Wang Mi naturally turned a blind eye to this kind of thing. After all, it is a question of how strong the army trained by Lu Tai is, but at least it looks very neat, and this is Lu Tai's ability. At least in the eyes of both Wang Mi and Wang Zhang, Lu Tai may have been born to be a soldier. The most important thing is that Lu Tai's father has died, and as an uncle, I have raised him to the age of 12. Now, not to mention being his father, being his adoptive father is definitely not a problem. There are heroes like generals, and my nephew is also a hero in the army. I have gained some more confidence in this campaign against Yi City. Shi Lu continued to compliment Wang Mi, without any concern for himself being relegated to Wang Mi. Last year, Shile was also responsible for conquering Changshan, but he met Wang Jun and was defeated by him. Therefore, this time Shi did not become the commander-in-chief, but instead became the deputy of Wang Mi, the commander of the eastern expedition. But this Shi not only had no shame, but also flattered and pleased Wang Mi very much. The two continued to discuss tomorrow's military affairs, and Shi obediently left to handle military affairs. "Brother, have you discussed with the Hu general of the Jie tribe?" Wang Zhang saw Shi leave when he returned. "Will he still cooperate?" A mere Jie tribe general, naturally aware of the situation. Wang Mi nodded and said, "He is a person who knows current affairs." The two of them also investigated the Shile around them to some extent. He came from the Jie tribe and was just a branch of the Xiongnu. At least the Xiongnu only used them as ordinary miscellaneous tools. However, this person named Shi is capable of being a good person and doing things. Although he didn't come from a very high background, he gradually climbed to become the general of the East expedition. However, during the expedition to Changshan last year, I encountered Wang Jun, and most of his hard-earned capital was destroyed. That's why he became the deputy of himself and others, but also had the right to independently dispatch Capricorn warriors. Both of them looked down upon the Hu people, or rather, although the Han Dynasty was overthrown and the Jin Dynasty was established, the Han ethnic group's spirit of suppressing officials from all directions was almost inherent to the Han ethnic group. They recognized Lu Yuan, recognizing the emperor who had already been Sinicized, rather than the Chanyu of the Xiongnu. In this regard, it is really difficult for both Wang Mi and Wang Zhang to show respect to the Hu people. In fact, this is not just Wang Mi and Wang Zhang, but the attitude of the entire Jin court towards foreigners is mostly the same. They truly look down upon all non-Han Hu people from the bottom of their hearts, thinking that they are just miscellaneous Hu people. In theory, Lu Yuan had already occupied Pingyang and occupied the Taihang Mountains, which posed significant strategic pressure on the entire Jin dynasty. Almost every time Lu Yuan invaded the Yellow River and suppressed Luoyang, he made Luoyang feel a deadly threat. However, even so, among the Sima families in Luoyang, who had taken Lu Yuan to heart, they were still vying for power and profit. Even Lu Yuan may not be able to catch their eye, let alone Shi Lu, who is still a subordinate of Lu Yuan. Who is this person? Oh. I remember, he was beaten by Wang Zhenggu in turn, but he was a very skilled bandit. Let's not mention this person for now. Why are you here at this time? Wang Mi couldn't help but wonder. Wang Zhang said, "The soldiers under Tai Er's command have crossed mountains and mountains with a well-organized army, and they are not tired. Aren't you curious?" Oh. What else is there to pay attention to here? Wang Mi heard Wang Zhang's words with a hint of curiosity. Wang Zhang looked serious because this discovery was very important for the military. He used hemp cloth to make the leggings. Originally, he only wanted to climb Taihang, so he ordered his soldiers to tie their legs with burlap to avoid disturbance from plants, insects, and ants. After tying it up for a long time, he found that after tying the leggings, he was not afraid of fatigue even after marching for a long time. So he immediately reported this matter to me. This leggings have such an effect. Wang Mi nodded and said upon hearing Wang Zhang's words, the military equipment recorded in the family has a similar style. Please take note of this matter first, and when Yi city is conquered, linen will be the first to obtain supplies. To be honest, if we only prevent the disturbance of plants, insects, and ants, it would be too luxurious for Wang Mi to wear this kind of thing for the entire military uniform. After all, for Wang Mi, who started his uprising and came from a noble family, he may not necessarily consider the lives of his soldiers, let alone just make their marching easier. But when leggings can relieve the fatigue of soldiers and even make their daily march faster, for Wang Mi, they are not comfortable equipment for soldiers, but equipment that can enhance the march, which is different. So, my brother wants to reward Tai Er. Wang Zhang decisively recommended it when he saw Wang Mi accepting it. This is a military battle. Even if Tai Er finds out that this thing has been meritorious, he cannot reward him now if he doesn't need it. Wang Mi shook his head when he heard Wang Zhang's words. Our army is all climbing the Taihang Mountains, isn't it? Since Tai Er's army is running fast, let him disturb Lin Lu for a while. Wang Zhang said calmly, more or less probe how much troops the Jin army has arranged in Lin Lu, so we can also attack the city. Because Lu Yuan used the Taihang Mountains as his barrier and had ease of movement, the Jin army would either have stationed troops at the location of the 8 Xings in the Taihang Mountains. Wang Zhang did not believe that Lu Tai could capture Lin Lu, but after all, the vanguard was relatively better at making achievements. Zhaoshuyuan.com so giving his nephew a chance, even if it fails, it can be said that Lu Tai's purpose is only to disturb Lin Si and collect information. After all, Lu Tai only commanded over 400 soldiers, so it's normal not to be able to capture Lin Sun. Upon hearing these words, Wang Mi couldn't help but ponder for a moment before finally nodding and saying, let Tai Er give it a try. Wang Zhang nodded and didn't say much, decisively starting the program. Although only one colonel with 500 soldiers was dispatched, to some extent, they still managed to snatch some of the vanguard's tasks. But who let Lu Tai's army get the leggings? The speed of other armies marching in this mountain area is slower than Lu Tai's army. So, in the situation of high military value and speed, it is natural for Lu Tai to lead his troops to take a step ahead. In this regard, at least under the prestige of Wang Mi, it is enough to leave others speechless. Of course, with Lu Tai's leggings and Wang Zhang's recommendation, coupled with Lu Tai's own small number of people, it was just a chance for Lu Tai to win. At least after the army arrives at Linlu, if Lu Tai doesn't use these over 400 people to capture Linlu, then if Lu Tai wants to lead the army independently again, he may have to wait for the next opportunity. This is where people with backgrounds are different from others. Because he relies on Wang Mi and Wang Zhang, even if Lu Tai loses 1 or 2 opportunities, it doesn't matter. As long as he continues to support both of them, there will always be opportunities. But for some truly self-made people, a single failure is like a lifetime in the water. However, although Lu Tai has the capital to fail, for Lu Tai, who wants to accumulate strength and most importantly, make money, he must seize every opportunity and constantly strengthen himself. Chapter 10. The Desperate City of Lu Tai. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wang Zhang finished the process and arrived at Lu Tai camp. At this moment, Gong Shiyu was teaching the Book of Han to everyone in the camp. Compared to Chu Yan's writing class, Gong Shiyu's Book of Han sounds very interesting to everyone, especially when they hear about Xiao He's pursuit of Han Xin under the moon. They all want to replace him with their own bodies and hope that their confidants can appreciate themselves as mere soldiers. Gong Shiyu's class is very precise, but this is already a course that Gong Shiyu has improved to some extent. Because men are naturally interested in history, and soldiers have infinite aspirations for the immortal soldiers of the Han Dynasty. So Gong Shiyu first chose a general like Han Xin to start talking, rather than a Han book slowly telling the story from beginning to end. It has to be said that people in this era often specialize in a book, so being good at books and being able to memorize the entire text is a basic requirement. Some even require you to speak logically if there are 2 completely unrelated sentences before and after. Anyway, compared to Chu Yu who needs you to carve characters on wooden chips with a carving knife, Gong Shiyu is definitely much more popular. As the sun was about to set, Gong Shiyu stopped teaching, while the soldiers were somewhat unsatisfied. Yes, Duke. Gong Shiyu saw Wang Zhang bowing to him. And Lu Tai looked at Wang Zhang and said, Second uncle, why did you come? Do you have any military affairs to entrust to Tai? It's good if I didn't disturb your lecture. Wang Zhang smiled at Gong Shiyu and turned his head to Lu Tai with a serious expression, I'm here to give you a military order. Tomorrow morning, take a step forward in your camp to investigate Lin Si's movements. Before the army arrives at Linlu, we can take down Linlu city, so that we can also have the bridgehead to take Yi city. Upon hearing these words, Lu Tai said, Tai Er has received the order, but why did he pick me? Wang Zhang said, "Didn't you come up with leggings so that you can cross mountains and quickly march? Speaking in detail, it is also your own sufficient preparation that has given you the opportunity to fight for. When it comes to Linlu, if Linlu's guard is lax, then try to take it. If Linlu is heavily guarded, then wait for the army to converge. There's me and my big brother behind you, there's no need to risk our lives." Lu Tai listened to Wang Zhang's instructions, but a hint of warmth also flowed in his heart. "I came into this world, even though my father was defeated and killed in battle, Wang Mi and Wang Zhang have always taken care of me. Lu Tai is still very grateful to them." "I understand." Lu Tai nodded and said, "Second uncle, do you have a guide who is familiar with the local environment, preferably with a local accent? Also, could you prepare a pancake for the entire camp that can be eaten for 7 to 10 days, so that we can eat it on the way?" Wang Zhang said to Lu Tai, "You can bring the non-cake tomorrow morning. As for the guide, you can come with me." The guide was prepared by the Jia tribe Shile, so if it's just a large army accompanying the army, then naturally there's no problem. But if I want to schedule a frontline investigation with you, I need to say hello to him, Shirlu. Lu Tai couldn't help but scratch his head, feeling that the name seemed to be similar to Lu Kuan, with a vague impression. But if we talk about what they have done specifically, to be honest, Lu Tai can't remember. There is no way, if Lu Tai travels through the Three Kingdoms, the situation that will be brought about through the connection of romance of the Three Kingdoms will not be completely dark. Whether it is to become a general or to conquer the world, there will be a plan to some extent. But now that I am in the late Jin Dynasty, at most I know that my life in the Western Jin Dynasty cannot last long. However, in the later 5 barbarians, I already knew that I was a Xianbei, and as for the rest, I really don't know." These thoughts only flickered in Lu Tai's heart, and the two of them arrived at the Shile camp. When Shirlu saw Wang Zhang coming to find him, he eagerly ran out to greet him and complimented him, saying, "Wang Zhubo, it's already so late, why did you come?" "General Shi, this is my nephew Lu Tai. He has been ordered to go to Lin Lu for investigation first. We need to dispatch several guides with local accents for him." Wang Zhang looked at Shirleli's leadership and also pointed out Lu Tai's identity. "It's easy to say, easy to say." Shirlu heard Wang Zhang's words and looked at Lu Tai with a hint of envy in his eyes. "Can you not envy me?" Wang Mi and Wang Zhang were aristocratic families during the Jin Dynasty. Although they didn't understand why they rebelled, what made them even more envious was that even if these aristocratic families jumped to the Han Dynasty, they were old friends with the current emperor Lu Yuan. And for himself, although he was appreciated by Lu Yuan, he appreciated his own abilities. "But last time I was defeated by Wang Jun, I lost a few points in my impression. How can I compare to the current hot Wang Mi and Wang Zhang?" Shirlu quickly smiled and sent the person over, then flattered, "I wish you great success, nephew." "Thank you very much, General Shi, for your help." Lu Tai looked at Shirli's eagerness and slightly didn't understand, but he also thanked Shirlu calmly. "This is a noble family." Shirlu watched as Wang Zhang and Lu Tai left, his eyes filled with envy. However, Shirlu looked at his curved sword again and realized that he didn't have a family, so he only had it. Lu Tai was naturally unaware of Shirli's envy towards him, and upon returning, he issued an order to prepare for the task. Especially asked Gongxiu and Chushi if they wanted to join the team, because the marching speed would increase in the future, fearing that they might not be able to hold on. After thinking about it, the two of them still felt that they would continue to follow Lu Tai. After all, everyone else followed, so they withdrew on their own. As sons of a noble family, their face made it difficult for them to say this before suffering. The normal marching speed of infantry is about 30 miles, but it has just entered the Taihang Mountains. The actual marching speed of 15 miles per day is quite good. But implementing a 3-meal system on my own, coupled with intentionally cultivating the physical fitness of the soldiers in Zhuoguocheng in the assistance brought by leggings, even when marching in mountainous areas, I can reach at least 40 miles per day. As for how to make them go further, it depends on their own skills. Lu Tai then brought a guide and started planning the route based on the route and water source provided by the guide. After the route planning was completed, Lu Tai breathed a sigh of relief and began to lie down to sleep. On the second day, Wang Zhang brought naan cakes to Lu Tai. Wang Zhang knew Lu Tai's habits and prepared portions of 3 meals a day. In total, he could eat them for 8 days. As for more, he couldn't give them, and even if he gave them, he couldn't bring them with him. Lu Tai and his troops immediately began to shake off the main force and began to cross the Taihang Mountains relatively quickly. Lu Tai is aware of the physical strength of his troops. Although under normal circumstances, it is not a problem to travel 10 kilometers in one breath, when crossing mountains and ridges, Lu Tai advocates brisk walking. Every time he sees a mountain, he points his finger to the mountaintop path according to the guidance of the guide. We climbed up to the water source and rested by eating pancakes. Although climbing the mountain, the soldiers have specific goals in their eyes and abundant food. They are not slow at all. During his rest, Lu Tai decisively instructed Gong Shiyu, who was already out of breath, to continue teaching the Book of Han. This made Gong Shiyu's gaze filled with envy as he looked at Chu Yen. After all, Lu Tai understood that it would be a bit excessive to have the soldiers write during this period. But what Lu Tai understands is that when people are tired and in a negative state, they need to find ways to prevent them from thinking recklessly. And Gong Shiyu was also considered a strong person, but the next day his mouth was smoking a bit, so he couldn't speak anymore. This makes Lu Tai feel very helpless. With just this stamina, if it weren't for not knowing how to write in Chinese, he would still need you. Lu Tai decisively took his position and immediately spoke of Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Emperor Zhaolai and his 3 companions saved Dong Zhuo from returning to the village. Dong Zhuo asked the 3 of them what their current positions were. Emperor Zhaolai said, "White body." Dong Zhuo was very lenient. Emperor Zhaolai emerged, and Zhang Fei was furious. "We personally went to a bloody battle and saved this servant, but he was so rude. If we don't kill him, it won't take away my anger." He wanted to raise his sword and enter the tent to kill Dong Zhuo. Exactly. The human situation is as ancient as it is today. Who knows that heroes are white-skinned? Be as swift as a winged virtue, and execute all those who betray the heart in the world. After all, what is Dong Zhuo's life like? Let's listen to the following text to break it down. Colonel, below Colonel. Keep talking. At this moment, even Lu Ming was a bit urging. There's nothing left below. Lu Tai said without hesitation, hurry up and sleep for me. Set up camp tomorrow and I'll talk about it again. Upon hearing Lu Tai's words, many of them were still unsatisfied, but in the face of Lu Tai's refusal, they could only endure it. Otherwise, what else could they do? They really couldn't beat Lu Tai. As the soldiers dispersed and began to rest at their camp, Chu Ting turned over and said, "I didn't expect the colonel to have such talent." The legend of the end of Han Dynasty came at his fingertips. I wonder if you are lucky enough to catch a glimpse of the entire text. A guy named Luo Guanzhong wrote it. It has nothing to do with me. If Gong Shiyu's physique can be stronger, I don't need to take it on anymore. Lu Tai couldn't help but sigh a bit. Colonel. Gong Shiyu's voice was slightly hoarse as he said, my throat is really not good. Take a good rest these days, I'll cover your class first. Lu Tai couldn't help but sigh. You are ashamed, Captain Xie is tolerant. Gong Shiyu replied in a hoarse voice. Relying on these detailed measures, Lu Tai led his troops to climb all the way through Fukuxing in the Taihang Mountains, and Linxi, the crucial city at the foot of the Taihang Mountains, appeared in Lu Tai's eyes. Although Fukuxing in this era was one of the 8 Xings of the Taihang Mountains, it was not given much attention due to historical reasons. To be more precise, before Lu Yuanjin took down the western Jin Dynasty, no one took the Taihang Mountain seriously in the unified Central Plains region. So the defense facilities are quite lagging behind, at least there are no checkpoints set up in Fukushing. However, setting up a Lin Lu city here to monitor is already quite interesting. After all, as long as we can't break through Lin Lu city, it's not easy to transport food in places like Taihang Mountains. Lu Tai and others directly abandoned their supplies, brought food, and set off, climbing up the mountain quickly. But if the army encounters this city of Linlu, they will definitely have to take it down in order to continue advancing, so it is quite uncomfortable for the attacking side to be stuck here. Lu Tai stood on the mountain, looking down at Linlu city. Although he didn't know who the generals in Linlu city were, there was a moat outside Linlu city that resisted horses, soldiers patrolled, and even a moat that was neither long nor short. And most importantly, the city's gate to Fukushing is tightly closed, looking like a turtle shell. To be honest, Lu Tai doesn't know how many people are inside, but with this prepared posture, it's not something that his over 400 people can take down. Everyone looked at the city's defensive posture and decisively gave up the desire for a strong attack. After all, in ancient times, attacking cities either relied on a large number of people to take down the enemy in one breath, or cut off the food and grass inside the city, trapping the enemy in a state of exhaustion. When their limbs were weak, they forcefully attacked the city. With the opponent's posture, it was definitely not something that our own people could take down. I still have loyal and capable people in the Jin court. Chu Yan watched Lu Tai scratching his ears and cheeks, but there was no way to break the city. Instead, he smiled with satisfaction. After spending these days together, Chu Yan also saw through Lu Tai. Although his heart was towards the Han dynasty, his bottom line was quite high. At least I won't make fun of myself and then cut myself off, especially when I need to teach writing by myself. You said I'll attack at night, can I take Lin Lu? Lu Tai seemed to be ready to gamble. There is absolutely no such possibility. Chu Yan continued to strike Lu Tai, night raids are not so simple. You have to bring climbing tools, and your troops are all elite with night vision. Why do you think that the defenders who are so diligent in arranging the city defense will collapse at a single touch due to your sudden night attack? Lu Tai understood when he heard Chu Ji Jiu's words, that if he attacked Lin Lu himself, as long as Lin Lu was a normal commander in the city, he was afraid that he would be unable to find the southeast, northwest, and northwest. Zhaoshuyuan.com. But as soon as I thought of this and looked at Chu Yan again, I suddenly said, today you're going to tell the historical story. Chu Ji Jiu couldn't help but be stunned when he heard Lu Tai's words and said, I don't know how to do it. Hua Tsubing was granted the title of Wolf Resident Su, and Do Bodu was appointed as the leader of Shi Yanran. You can choose anyone to tell the soldiers. Lu Tai spoke up. Chu Ji Jiu could also see that Lu Taisher couldn't break through the city defense of Linlu city, so he vented his frustration on himself. Chu Ji Jiu did not confront Lu Tai and said with a smile, I take orders. Although I was in charge of today's class, watching Lu Tai face Lin Luching helplessly, Chu Ji Jiu was also very comfortable. Lu Tai watched as Chu Ji Jiu left and then looked at Lin Lu, who was hard and sturdy at the foot of the mountain, feeling a slight pain in his head. Lin Luching is really difficult to capture, after all, the other party is clearly on guard. As long as they command normally, there is nothing they can do. Leading troops in battle, it is impossible for oneself to place hope on the possibility of the other party making mistakes. But Lu Tai understood that there was not much opportunity for him to lead the army alone. Of course, there will definitely be opportunities to rely on Wang Mi and Wang Zhang in the future, but if I don't seize this opportunity, it's hard to say when I will have the next chance. So, Lu Tai really wants to seize this opportunity. Lu Tai looked at this Lin Lu city and took a deep breath. I really don't believe I can't take it down. After Chu Ji Jiu finished telling the historical story to the entire army, Lu Tai decisively ordered the soldiers to rest and prepare to set off tomorrow at 3 o'clock. At the same time, Lu Tai brought all his centurions over and deployed tactics. As soon as Lu Tai spoke, he poured a basin of cold water down and said, "We can't beat Lin Lu.